Hello, and welcome back to Zenin Fanfics. Today we're starting part 2 of an exciting new series. What if Deku had Kitsune Quirk? If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe for more content. The story we're featuring is written by FoxLover25 on archiveofourown.org. You can find all the relevant links in the description, so be sure to check out the author's profile and say hello. Now let's dive into the story. Throughout the rest of the day, the sub did not ease up in his threat to give them all detention. And Izuku, for his part, was trying awfully hard not to freak out, lest he wanted something else getting destroyed. He didn't know what happened. He just felt this rage build up. It was unlike anything he has ever felt before. He could barely describe what it felt like. When he was getting mad, he felt as if here was this sort of pressure, and each comment that got passed was like it was getting bigger and bigger. And then, pop, the windows shattered. The windows were extremely strong, and after several bursts of Bakuga's anger, it proved to be true. It proved that the windows needed a lot more force. What would happen if he accidentally hit a person with that? Definitely not good. He honestly wants to try it again. Does that make him bad? He didn't want to know the answer. Being quirkless all his life, you would think he could wait a bit longer before doing anything. But no, he wanted to do everything. Where did this new mindset come from? He was usually cautious and timid, but today it was like there was something else. Like this new side of him that desired for more. He wanted to see what he was capable of. Right now the class was currently working in their classroom and studying on their own while waiting for the bell to ring for lunch. Izuku still hadn't found out what was in his box. Damn it. How the hell could he do this? It wasn't like there was a SWCH or anything. Izuku looked around him. Thankfully, no one was paying attention to him. He would feel so embarrassed if they were staring at him. How would it look if he were trying awfully hard to activate a power that was dormant when he was declared quirkless? He looked at the clock. It was 15 minutes till lunch. CRP. He had to hurry. He sniffed the air, trying to get a whiff of something different. Damn it, nothing but the usual. He wasn't getting anything. SHD. Come on. How did he get the sense of taste? He didn't do anything special. He just took a bite and wonders happened. So what was he missing? Did this somehow relate to his mental state? Or did this relate to his energy? He had taken an 8-hour nap. Nope, that was a full-on sleep. So was that it? He had to have more energy. No, that wasn't it. Because a half an hour later, he had to go back to sleep. What the hell was? Son of a beach, this was so frustrating. How do quirk users activate their power? They usually have to do something that would make their quirk react. So is that what he had to do? He had to do a specific thing to make it activate. His senses were something tricky. So what would it have to do to make it activate? Think, damn it. You only have 9 minutes left. He sniffed the air again, loudly this time. He got a few people's attention. SHD. They looked at him with confusion and a deadpan expression. He just waved his hands. My nose is a bit stuffy. He hoped they believed him. They just raised an eyebrow and went back to their work. He breathed a sigh of relief. That was close. Damn it, why was this so hard activating his Kadash? Wait. No, he was thinking this all wrong. This wasn't a quirk. Mom even said that a quirk is a lot less power. Quirks were meant for humans. Izuku wasn't human anymore. He was a kitsune. He had to get that through his head. It was hard, though, since he was still quite normal. Other than his sense of taste, he was pretty normal. Well, if you don't count the shattered windows, then yeah, he was pretty normal. He saw all kinds of quirks develop. He had seen all kinds of people get quirks that do not make any sense. And they were all human. Humans receive quirks by childhood. Even though he was still a teenager, he was not a child. He didn't grow up with glory and powers handed to him. He had to face hell and agony and almost get murdered just to get a leash taken off him. He didn't want to go easy. He didn't want to hold back. He wanted to embrace what he had. He was no longer human. He was a kitsune, damn it. He could do anything. He closed his eyes and concentrated. He blocked everything out. He blocked out the noise coming from the other students, the heater, the world. He cut off his fear. Now focus. You could do anything. Focus, you're not human. Focus, you are a kitsune. Sniff, what was that? That was nothing like ever before. He smelled it. He smelled fish and blueberries. That was the exact scent he smelled whenever there were a lot of them in front of him. Wait, there was also rice. There was also caramel. Wait, That wasn't coming from his bento box. That was coming from Kakin. Izuku opened his eyes and looked over to where the blonde Saturday. He was doing his work with a bored expression. How could Izuku smell him from so far away? Oh yeah, super senses. Oh my god, super senses. I just got my sense of smell. What else can I smell? He focused again this time with his eyes open. He tilted his head up slowly and gently sniffed the air. And just like that, everything came rushing in. He can smell everything in this room. He smelled the mint-flavored toothpaste most of the class used, the coffee breath of the teacher, the cleaning solutions for the classroom. The room wasn't clean for a week or two. Holy SHD, he can smell even the faintest scents. The smudge of chocolate on a student's face, the dirt from the outside, the flowers on the shelf, the rotting ceiling, which was gross, but he didn't care. He could even smell donuts and fresh coffee. The donuts were glazed in chocolate. The coffee was with pumpkin spice. Wait, that wasn't in the classroom. That was in the faculty room. He remembered seeing them have a box of donuts and a pot of coffee when he passed by on his way to homeroom. Oh my god, don't tell me. He can smell that far. He started to get every bit of scent of everything in the school. Perfume, graphite, cherry pie, bubblegum, cleaning soap, and sniff asterisk. Oh god. Someone farted. Jesus, people are nasty. He was so happy. He unlocked one of his senses. Now he had taste and smell. Oh my god, he did it. He freaking did it. He was so happy he was so exited. Was this what it was like to have a chew dash? No, stop it. Stop it. He mentally scolded himself. This isn't a quirk. This is his power. And this was his power. It was like a cloud was obscuring his sight. But instead of his eyes, it was his nose. Now the cloud is gone. He smelled everything in the school. It was a bit overwhelming, but he didn't care one bit. He was happy. Whoa, look, a female student exclaimed. Izuku was startled out of his state of euphoria by the shout of his female classmate, as was everyone else as they lifted their heads and gazed at what the girl was pointing to. She pointing at the wall with the shelves that held the planted flowers they just placed just 2 weeks ago. The potted plants had a few daffodils, daisies, tulips, and lilies. They had just planted them as they were little stems. The class gawked as they witnessed what was happening. All their eyes were wide open. Izuku was the same, but in awe. Once tiny stems, now enormous flowers at least a meter long on all 12 pots. The flowers had developed and had multiplied. They were absolutely gorgeous. The colors of them were so bright and the most appealing anyone has ever seen. There wasn't a dying leaf or stem among all of them. They were absolutely majestic. Did Izuku do that? He didn't even feel it, but he was happy from gaining another one of his senses, so maybe. One of the students in the back row got up and approached the flowers with caution. He slowly reached his hand and cautiously caressed a leaf of the daisy. Why was he afraid? It was just a flower. After a few seconds, he turned back to the class. They're real, he stated. Of course they were real. What did they all think? It was an illusion. They all breathed a sigh of relief. Don't tell me they thought they were dangerous. Wait, but we planted those a few weeks ago. How could they be like this now? A girl questioned to no one in particular. Maybe you water them a lot. Another student, he had to learn their names, stupidly answered. The rest of the class stared at him with an expression that just said, idiot. Idiots, Kakin shouted to the entire class while a few sparks lit up from his palm. It's from a DMN quirk. He turned back away from them. Exactly. In which I will ask again, who used their quirk? The sub spoke up in between the confusion. The frustration was evident on his face. CRP, did he get the entire class into trouble again? But it wasn't his fault. He was just happy. But he wasn't about to tell him and his entire class that this was caused by his mystic powers that were tied to his emotions. They would think he was a liar or simply crazy. Sir, none of us have a plant quirk. Another female student spoke up to the teacher. So the plants just magically grew by themselves. The teacher said sarcastically, well, not by themselves. Izuku's sweat dropped. This was going to be bad. He already knew it. The entire class said nothing as they could not come up with an explanation. Fine. If the student that used their quirk takes responsibility for their actions, I will give this entire class 3 weeks detention. He threatened the entire class. A handful of complaints were launched at the sub. He didn't take in any of it. The person has till the count of 3 to come forward, or 3 weeks it is. The sub declared with a gruff. 1. The sub started to count. He couldn't tell anyone what was going on. He didn't want the entire class to have detention, nor did he want to have detention. 2. SHD. What'd he do? He had to do something right. He couldn't just leave the entire class to this kind of fate. 3. He finished. No one in the class dared to move or speak, too afraid of what would happen. The teacher gazed around at each student. He looked into Izuku's face to see absolute fear. The teacher moved on from Izuku's face. He must not suspect him since he was probably notified who were the quirkless students in the class. Silence was the only thing in the classroom that was rare. Even Kakin would not keep his quiet for this long. But he was no idiot. He knows that if he spoke up, it would make things worse. After the sub had finished scanning the room, he looked forward and closed his eyes and let out a big sigh. None of you have detention, he whispered, barely loud enough for the students to hear. What? All of the students exclaimed at the same time. The sub opened his eyes and explained. It's clear to me that none of you used your quirks. Otherwise, you would have said something rather than the entire class have detention. The entire class, including Kakin eyes, twitched at the trap made for them by their sub-teacher. That was smart but cruel as all hell. Just then the bell rang. After the teacher revealed the threat of a 3-week-long detention was just a ruse, none of the students were willing to stay in there for one more second. They all stampeded out like a pack of bulls running for red. Apart from the teacher and Izuku, who was still in shock, the room was empty. The sub looked at Izuku, whose eyes were still wide. Aren't you going to go to lunch? He questioned the shocked child. Izuku was snapped out of it and stuttered out a sentence. I usually Jew. Just eat I in here, he explained. He nodded his head. Very well. Enjoy your food. The teacher exited the class. After the door shut, Izuku heaved a breath he didn't know he was holding. Oh my God, that was freaking close. He gazed at the flowers. They were still pretty big. How'd he do that? Mom said when I get happy, good things happen. But did he seriously do that? He just got happy that he developed another one of his senses. He didn't pay attention to what he felt. He just did it. This was only the first day back, and he is already causing a commotion with his weird emotion powers. He really needs to know how to get this under control. How did Mom do this her entire life without anyone ever noticing? Nothing he can do about it now. He sagged. He reaches into his backpack and takes out his bento box. If his senses are accurate, and they most likely are, then he will be eating fish, blueberries, and rice. He opened the box, and to his surprise, it was exactly it. There was also a folded-up note taped on the top of the box. He unfolded it, and there in green ink were the words he laughed to. I knew you could do it, with a smiley face. Mom, you are clever. Hang on. She gave me the box before she gave me the challenge. Did she know this would happen, or did she already plan on giving him the challenge? Beep, his phone notified that he got a text. Did he not put it on vibrate? He got his phone. It was from his mom. Does she have some kind of psychic powers that I don't know about? Who am I kidding? She most likely does. He opened the text. I knew you would have anxiety going back. So, I made up a challenge. And you're growing. I'm so proud of you. We'll talk more later. Eat up for now. Love you, my little fox. She did know. DMN, she is clever. I really love that you're my mom. He mentally praised her. He put his phone on vibrate and started to eat his lunch. About 15 minutes in lunch, he was already done with the entire box. Wow, that was amazing. He rubbed his stomach and leaned back into his seat. He will never get used to these godly tastes. He looked at the clock posted in the front of the class. He still had about 30 minutes before lunch ended. Usually he would stay in here and read up about the latest hero news. But today he wanted to test his senses even more. He wanted to see how much he could do with this new sense of smell. He closed his eyes, and just like that, his world opened again. He could smell the various lunches the other students were having. Some packed lunches, and some from the cafeteria. He can smell some sodas that some of the students were having. Everything he was smelling, he felt like it was right in his face. It was so strong. He loved it. This was incredible. Clang, he heard a loud clash. He opened his eyes and he looked around. There was nothing there. What the hell? That sounded like two swords colliding. Clang, he heard it again. Then again. He stood up and looked up all around. He heard it again, but this time with another sound. A ringing sound from a phone. It was like it was put on speaker. He then heard someone answer it. Hello. He went to the door of the classroom and opened it. No one was in the hallway. What the hell? Achoo, someone sneezed very loud. Izuku turned to the direction he heard it from. Bless Dash. He stopped when he saw no one in the direction he heard it from. You. He raised his eyebrow in suspicion and confusion. He then heard someone talking real loud, like they were speaking in a microphone, and Izuku was right next to the speaker. Come on, go talk to her. You know she likes you. He heard one of his classmates speak to another. He went back inside the classroom and went back to his desk. What was going on? He sat back down and began to think when he suddenly heard a pounding drum. Wait, not a pounding drum. A thumping sound. This sound was soft but firm. He knew he heard this kind of sound before, but where? It continued again for a while. Its rhythm picked up in speed. What was it? Oh my God. Don't tell me it's a heart. He was hearing the heartbeat of someone. But how is he doing this? Surely there must be an explanation to why this was happening. He developed smell a while ago. Did he really acquire hearing as well? But it took him a week and a half just to get another when taste first came in. Did he really do it again that fast? He must have. How else can he explain this? He stood there a few minutes longer listening to the things he could now hear. He could hear everything in the school. Conversations, devices beeping, students walking, heartbeats, pens scribbling on paper. This was maddening. He loved it. He started to jump very happily and pump his fist in the air. He got another one of his senses. He was so happy. He was in a constant state of euphoria and excitement. The flowers that grew earlier, due to his emotions, started to get bigger and bigger till they reached the ceiling. He glimpsed at them and smiled nervously. OCRP. This was going to be hard to explain. He honestly didn't care. He gained 2 more of his senses today, and he was DMN, well proud of himself for it. If they asked about the flowers, he would just say they grew when I went to the bathroom, so he didn't see anything. He would say it was a student with a plant quirk who was playing a prank on them. Yeah, they would believe that. He sighed. He sat back in his chair and leaned his head back. Why the hell was he so worried again? This day was turning out awesome. Well, everything except the shattered super quirk glass. He didn't care. This was an amazing day. He closed his eyes, and in that moment, he felt like there was something else in his head. This feeling wasn't like the emotion thing where he destroyed the windows. This was something more, like a type of fluid behind a door in his head. What was this now? Another part of his powers. Ever since he got the medallion off, he felt like his brain was bigger, like it had more space for knowledge and for something else. Like something woke up. This must have been that something. He didn't know what this was. His mom never said anything about this. Was this Kitsune related? Who was he kidding? Of course this was Kitsune related. His curiosity got the better of him. Izuku opened the door just a crack for maybe a millisecond to let the fluid in. He wanted to know what it was like. At the end of the day, he would regret opening the door. Izuku opened his eyes and gasped for air. Oh my God. Izuku stood up fast with wide eyes. His pupils were dilated. His heartbeat was quickened. He looked around the room with curiosity. He was like a curious animal being outside for the first time. This was mesmerizing. The state he was in was inconceivable. All of his mind that had previously been one of happiness just amplified, and now was mixed with fascination and about a dozen other emotions mixed. All his previous worries and fears were now just shadows. All his desires are now shining like the sun. What was this feeling? This absolute, amazing feeling. He didn't know he could feel this way. He didn't know anything could feel this way. Was this how Kitsunes felt? If so, he loved being a Kitsune. He felt lighter. He felt like his mind was just freed. But one feeling he was at the moment was mischievous. He wanted to have some fun. He grinned as he looked around, trying to figure out how to have some fun. His eyes landed on a basket of apples one of the students brought from home. He stated that at the end of the day, he wanted to give out apples from his family's orchard. He grinned at the basket. What could he do? He looked around again, and his eyes landed on the perfect thing on the other shelf. This was going to be so fun. Few hours later, lunch ended, and the students were back in Air homeroom, going over more stuff for the rest of the day. It was just about to be the end of the day. Izuku was grinning like a madman on crack. Thankfully, he hit it well by keeping his head down. This was not going to be good. All right, students. Pencils down. The sub ordered, and everyone complied. One of your fellow classmates has brought over some snacks he wishes to share with you all. Please be respectful and thank him," he ordered. Everyone turned to the one, now, handing out apples to each student, and they all said thank you. This was going to be bad. By the time he ended passing out all the apples, everyone had bit into them. Immediately, they all spit them out and groaned. "Oh my God, what is that?" One of the students shouted. She was holding her mouth open and trying to fan it with her hand. "I don't know, but it's terrible." Another student spoke up. He looked like he was about to vomit. The student that handed out the apples were staring confusion. "Wait, they're not bad, are they?" he asked, embarrassed. Kakin stood up and grabbed the kid by his collar and roughly pulled him close. "What the hell did you put on those DMN things, you extra?" Kakin was about to kill him. "Nothing, I swear. They came from my dad's trees. I swear they were good." The kid was tearing up and pleading for his life. Izuku couldn't keep in his laughter anymore. He broke out laughing. Every head in the class turned to face the green eat. They were all confused for a few seconds, and then, "You did this," they all shouted with murder in their eyes. Izuku just kept laughing. Ahem, the sub got Izuku's attention. He pointed towards the door with a death glare. Midoriya, principal's office, now growled at him. And just like that, the mindset was gone and back was the normal Izuku. "Oh God, what the hell have I done?" SHD 1 hour later, Inko knew she would be getting a call from school today. She just thought it would be a little earlier. To be fair, she thought she would have been called by the police, so this was better. She was in the middle of her shift at the hospital when she got a call from Izuku's principal telling her that Izuku is in huge trouble and that she needed to come down right away. She compelled her boss to let her out early. She missed using her powers. They made life so much better and fun. Inko honestly wondered what her little fox could have done to end up in the principal's office. She really hoped he didn't kill anyone. She knocked on the door to MR, Briarwood's office. "Come in." Briarwood's voice responded from the other side. She opened the door, and what greeted her was an angry teacher and a son who was trying to hide his jacket. Briarwood was standing up at the window. "Ms. Midoriya, please have a seat." He gestured to the chair to the side, if Izuku. Izuku kept his head down. She smiled at him, but he didn't even look at her. Briarwood walked to his chair. He was limping and grunting in pain. Good. He was doing the boiling water. He sat down with a hiss. He stared at the mother and child with a blank expression. "Ms. Midoriya, your son committed a cruel prank on his homeroom class. We called you here to discuss a suitable punishment for him." The principal started off. "Really?" She glanced at her son, who was still not making eye contact with either of them. "What did he do?" She wanted to know how bad it was. One of his classmates brought a basket of apples to school today to treat his class with some snacks. The class took a bite out of them and spit them out. The student was embarrassed until your son was caught. It turns out your son painted the apples with hot and soy sauce mixed together. No one was hurt, thankfully, but this act cannot go excused. Something must be done. Briarwood finished explaining what Izuku did. "He did?" she asked with glee in her voice. "What the hell?" Izuku just shrunk more. "Yes, unfortunately he did. Now I would like to discuss proper punishment for your son, as he was caught off. Forget the incident that happened today. Izuku is a good kid, and he would never do anything like what you said." Inko compelled Briarwood again. He had a blank stare for a moment before smiling. "You and your son can go now. I apologize for keeping you two here," his mood doing a 180. Izuku stared wide-eyed and mouth gaped big. He had just witnessed compulsion for the first time. He had never seen anything like that in his entire life. He wasn't even sure quirk users could do it that easily. "Wonderful." Inko stood up and sized Izuku's hand. "Have a good day." Izuku was still in shock. They left. Inko and Izuku were in the car, driving home. None of them had spoken since. Inko had a calm smile on her face. Izuku had an unreadable expression. The silence was killing Izuku. Finally, "What?" Izuku squeaked. He turned to his mother. Inko turned to him, looking confused herself. "What? What do you mean, what? What did you do to him?" He was talking about his principal. She turned back to the road. "Well, I compelled him." She stated like it was as interesting as the weather. "You compelled him?" He spoke slowly. He still couldn't believe it. "Yes. You don't deserve to be punished for a harmless prank. Those were just apples, and those kids deserve a bit of fun." She defended him. But. He was having trouble finding words. She held a hand towards him. I know it could be a bit troubling to see compulsion for the first time, but don't worry. You'll be used to it in no time. And once you learn how to do it, you'll be doing it all the time anyway. WH-. He was still having trouble forming words. And Izuku really? You got caught. Disappointment and pleasure were mixed in her voice. She was not taking this seriously at all. Well, I couldn't help it. I just couldn't stop laughing. And that's another thing. What was that? 1 second I'm normal, and then the next I'm a full-on mischievous delinquent. He was describing that state he was in. Inko tilted her head to the side in confusion of what he meant. What do you mean? She finally got what he meant. DMN. I hoped you would have to deal with that for a few more days. She sweat dropped. Izuku looked confused now. Deal with what? What's going on with me other than all the Kitsune stuff? He waved his hands, gesturing to himself. She let out a big sigh. I'm sure you've noticed some changes to yourself, both physically and mentally. But mentally, there is something extra that is extremely different for Kitsunes that humans don't have. And it is quite interesting when you have an outside perspective. He put his head back, waiting for the inevitable headache. He then remembered before he could forget. Oh, I forgot to tell you. I got my smell and my hearing too. I could hear everything on the school. I could even hear people's heartbeats. He spoke with absolute glee. She turned to him with a happy smile. Oh, baby, I'm so proud of you. It's a rush, isn't it? She asked him. Yeah. It was like a cloud was blocking me. My whole life suddenly disappeared. And now I can see so much more, but with my nose and my ears. He boasted. He remembered everything. And now he can hear so much. The car's engine, conversations in the car, next to him, all the functions happening in the road. He could hear everything. And this is just your first day. As time goes on, and with practice, your senses will get even stronger. She stated while stopping at a red light. He turned back to her. So, tell me what that was back in the classroom. The state I was in. He remembered what they were talking about before. So mental differences between a human and a Kitsune is very big. We remember everything. We understand everything. We perceive things almost instantly. And we are more intelligent than humans are. Honestly, 10 years of Kitsune is thrice the intellect of a full-grown human genius. Also, we are incredibly manipulate. She explained to her son, who was starting to understand what he read on the lore about Kitsune intelligence. This was going to be good. She turned to her son to make sure he was following along. He was. And so Kitsunes also have something else that is quite problematic at times. She continued, there's a part of us that we can turn on and off at certain levels. This part of us is called our trickster. This part of us is when we ignore everything else. We don't care about anyone else. We only care about ourselves and some form of entertainment or mischief. That is where things get quite complicated. When a Kitsune is in this state, they don't care what is going on. They don't care what is happening. They only care about causing some chaos. She explained. He sat up straight and looked at his mom with horror. So that's why I felt like that. I swear that was the best feeling I have ever felt before in my life, and now you're saying it is extremely dangerous. He panicked. The car windshield next to them shattered, and the car swerved but managed to park safely. No one was hurt. He had to get this under control. He grimaced at the sight. Inko just stared like it was a bird at the park. I see your powers are adjusting nicely. She sarcastically stated. They kept driving. Mom, this is serious. He didn't feel like jokes at the moment. You're fine, don't worry. She calmed him. How could he not worry? Anyway, back to what I was saying. From what I heard of you pulling a harmless prank, you barely let your trickster out. Maybe a slight glimpse of him. If you let him out entirely, we would probably be skipping town already. She seemed like she was joking, but she was quite serious. You're not helping, he said in a deadpan voice. Well, you didn't, so we're fine. You're just lucky you weren't angry at the time when you let him out. Then that would have been a lot worse. She stated. Why would that be worse? He sounded unsure. Again, well, your trickster acts the way it does to respond to two sides. Your good side, that's just pranks and mischievous acts and harmless fun. Or your bad side. When that happens, the Kitsune can turn into a bloodthirsty, psychotic monster. She shuddered. What? He screamed, which caused Inko to swerve a bit. Izuku, I am driving. Please. She playfully scolded him. Sorry. He said a lot quieter now. What do you mean by that? A kitsune can turn into a monster. He was extremely worried now. I can't really explain it well other than if a human gets in a kitsune's way when they are in that state, they better pray they kill them quickly. She explained with another shudder. So wait, I'm gonna have a psychopath in my head for the rest of my life. Another car swerved to an emergency parking because of a shattered windshield. No, she sighed. Izuku, for the rest of your life, you're gonna have another side of yourself that will rely on what you're feeling. He's gonna be in your head, and he will want you to let him out. But with practice, you two can exist with each other without causing any problems. Mine is still there, but she doesn't ail me towards her. She just is there whenever I need her. She feels her trickster in the back of her head, like a little memory. So I can control him? He asked meekly. Yes, you can, Izuku. And remember, your trickster is just another side of you who just does what he desires. It's still you. You don't have to worry about blacking out or anything like what television says about that sort of thing. It is just you letting yourself free. She stopped at another traffic light. All right, he relented. After a few more minutes, a thought finally came to his head. Hey, Mom. Yes, sweetie. She wasn't ready for what he will ask her. Since when do we have a car? They didn't have a car all their lives. Well, Izuku's life. She had a straight face. Since this morning. Her voice held no emotion. He stared at her a bit more. You stole this car, didn't you? No, she said slowly. As a matter of fact, the store gave it to me for free. You compelled yourself a car. Disappointment was written in the boy. We needed one anyway. She tried to defend herself. He was about to say something, but stopped, then said something else. I was about to say, could you at least buy it? But then I remembered we can't afford a car. Actually, sweetie, we can afford way more than you think. He stared at her again. How much more? He inquired. She kept silent for a little bit. We can afford every building in Japan every day for about 300 years. He enlightened him. You have got to be kidding me. He didn't even know if she was messing with him or not. Izuku, I am over 5,000 years old. You really think I wouldn't save some money or have my claws in a few business deals? She remembered that she was indeed one of the richest persons on the planet. She even remembered how she was part of the mob a few hundred years ago. Izuku honestly didn't know if he had words for the rest of the day. He sat back and crossed his arms. He was a bit grumpy. He had a cute face when he was grumpy. She glanced at him. This car has seat warmers. She told him. He raised his eyebrow in curiosity. She always knew how to cheer him up. He looked at the center radio where the button would be located. He looked for a bit when his finger was hovering over the buttons. He couldn't find it. Down, she said. He found it and pushed the button. That evening, when they returned to their home, Izuku started to explore more of the limits to his senses. When going up the stairs to his apartment, every step he took he heard like echo. When putting in his keys through the door, he heard the pins of the lock jiggling like an instrument. Going inside, he focused a bit more. He can hear all the way to the other apartment buildings. He could hear the people, their devices, their food that they were making. He could hear it sizzling in the pan. It was all mesmerizing. He then focused in his sense of smell. Big mistake. He smelled everything, and it was disgusting. He smelled people's gross breath. He smelled their natural body odor. And Jesus Christ, this is a torture no one should have to suffer. He smelled the trash bins outside. They were filled with rotten food and animal products that were designed to help animals with nature's business. How do ordinary animals deal with this CRP? How does his mother deal with this? She's way stronger than this. She must be going through hell. He was sitting on the couch, and she was right next to him reading a book. He turned to her. She looked so calm at the moment. How could she not be writhing in agony over the horrid odor? Mom, he called out to her. She looked up. Yes, sweetie. How are you handling this right now? He asked her. She grew confused. Handle what? Was she serious? Handle the disgusting smell that's currently everywhere. The scent that is burning my nostrils. The scent that any normal person would smell that they would die instantly. He was rambling on about the horrendous smell. She burst out laughing. Sweetie, believe me when I tell you this. This is not even half bad compared to the things I've smelled before. And plus, things aren't really that bad for me anymore. To me, they're just smells. That's it. She explained with a grin. Lately, every time she speaks, she continues to shock Izuku. What else has she done in her life? Do I even want to know? He mentally debated. You'll get used to it soon, baby. It just takes time. She patted his shoulder. He cited all the things that he will be getting used to. There were so many. How could he focus on one thing when he could barely focus on the other? So, when are my other senses going to develop? Izuku asked. I have honestly no idea. They could develop right now, or they could develop in a few years. It's all different. She held up her book again. A few years, Izuku exclaimed. His other senses could take a few years. How the hell was that even possible? A glass vase of flowers suddenly burst and shattered all over the place. Water and flowers spilled all over the floor. Izuku paled at the sight. Why does his emotions hate him? Inko chucked. I'm kidding, Izuku. You don't have to get freaked out about it. She grinned at her son. The glass started to rise and levitate. All the shards were now above them, and they had moved into one space. Wouldn't want to step on any glass now. Since you got 2 more of your senses today, the other 2 should be very close. She explained as the shards of glass was deposited in the trash can. And as soon as they begin to take effect, and you get a good understanding of them, they'll teach you how to use your other powers. She held up her book once again. He sighed. She really had to stop with the jokes if she wants to keep him from accidentally destroying stuff. He already destroyed a quirk-proofed window, 2 car windshields, and a vase. And that was just today. Who knows what else he could destroy if he has an anxiety attack? Wait, did Kitsunes have anxiety attacks? Dear God, so many questions at once. He needed to make a list. He would probably get through half his notebook before getting through half his questions if he were to write them all down. Hey, Mom, will I ever be able to control my emotions? He asked suddenly. She looked up at him. In time you will. You should have seen me back when I was a little kid. She smiled as she was thinking back on old memories. Every time I would cry, I started a tsunami somewhere in the world. She giggled. But as time went on, I got more control of my powers. Now it takes a lot for my emotions to shatter something like you did. The most my emotions can do is kill flowers or make them grow. If I'm angry, I can set flowers on fire, but that's only if I'm truly angry. She explained her many emotions. So the reason everything around me is breaking and getting destroyed is because I can't control my powers yet. Izuku guessed. She nodded. Yeah, baby. As soon as you get your other senses, I'll teach you to do some basic things. And once you get hold of the basics, I'll show you what you can really do. She smiled at the thought of showing her little fox how to create a tornado. Okay, so what are the basics? He wanted to know what he could do as soon as possible. For what he read on the lore, a kitsune could do a vast amount of things. Well, I want to show you how to use telekinesis. Little things at first. Then I want to show you how to compel humans. You could do tons of things with that amazing ability. Then I want to move on the physical aspects. Inko cupped her chin in thinking what else she could teach him before they moved to the bigger stuff. Physical aspects. Izuku tilted his head. In confusion. Yeah, you're going to get stronger. A lot stronger. You will also become a lot faster. And a lot more durable. Honestly, Izuku, when I said that you would never be the same again, I meant it. We only look like human. Doesn't mean we're as fragile as them. She explained. Izuku did not know his mom thought like that. To him, humans seemed pretty tough. Especially All Might. Humans weren't like glass. How much stronger am I going to get? He might as well get as many questions as possible out of the way now that he has time. She leaned in with a deadpan expression. A lot stronger. She whispered. She did not want to tell him that she was stronger than All Might. That would make him destroy the entire building out of shock. Why did that unnerve him a bit? His sweat dropped. Inko backed away. As for how much faster, well, she trailed off. Inko stood up. Before Izuku knew it, Inko was gone. She disappeared. Izuku stood up in surprise. He looked in both directions. Mom. He called out. He looked all over the apartment. Oh God, where was she? His phone rang. Izuku jumped in surprise. Who's calling him now? No one calls him except his mother. That was a morose thought. He blinked at the caller ID. It was his mom. What the hell? He pressed the answer button and held it to his ear. Hello. He answered uncertainly. Do you want anything from Okari's dinning? His mother's voice answered back. Wait, what the hell? Mom, where did you go? He disregarded the question Inko asked. I'm at Okari's dinning. Do you want anything? She asked again. But that place is across town. You were just in the living room, not even a minute ago. He was on the verge of a mental breakdown right now. All breakable items in the downstairs apartment spontaneously broke into a dozen pieces. I know. I'm way out of practice. She huffed. She sounded annoyed. This is you out of practice, Izuku exclaimed. There goes the apartment next door. I told you. Kitsunes are fast. Now do you want anything, sweetie? I'm almost at the front of the line. She urged him. Yeah, you said they were fast, but not this fast. Jesus. He sighed. I'll have my usual. He finally requested food. With no salt. She asked, knowing he hated his usual with salt. Yes, please. He faltered. All right, I'll be home in like 10 minutes. She hung up. He allowed a heavy sigh. The bakery was on the other side of town. Even with the car, it would have taken at least half an hour. I have to learn not to be shocked by all my mother can do. He thought, I wonder if I can do that. He perked up. While his mother was still out, he began to write in his new notebook all the things kitsunes could do. Or more specifically, what his mother can do, since she is a 9-tailed kitsune and the only one Izuku has been with so far. His notebook chapter started off with what Inko said kitsunes were. How they were created, how they were a part of the world. There was a drawing of silhouette fox with 9 tails right next to the words. Next page, it was saying how the kitsunes left, but only few stayed. The other side stated how their leave caused the genesis of quirks. There was a drawing of an orb of light that looked as if it was pouring water to a bunch of humans. The orb of light was supposed to represent mana, and the water was meant to be quirks on a humans. The next page was explaining about kitsune pearls, how they were in the heart, how if they were shattered, then it would cause death. He then wrote down how there was a necklace made to turn a kitsune into a human as long as the human keeps the necklace on. The drawing was of his necklace that he had worn since BRTH. He's glad it is gone. The next page was stating how taking off the medallion can trigger a process that is of absolute agony, that it made him vomit out all his bones and organs. He added a side note. It sucked, he wrote down. That was understating it massively. The next page, it explained all the powers he had known so far. Super strength, super senses, super speed, telekinesis, weather manipulation, plant manipulation, illusions, mind control, semi-immortality, fire manipulation, teleportation, foxfire. He didn't put a picture here since he wanted to leave room because he just knew there was more. He wanted to know as much as he could. He wanted to know everything there was to a kitsune. His mom stated that quirks were just tiny crumbs compared to what kitsunes have. This was different than hero and quirk analysis. This wasn't science or anything like that. This was like actual magic. Izuku doesn't think kitsunes obey the laws of physics. Hell, his mom said that foxfire doesn't obey the laws of physics and that it only obeys us. He could think of many ways he could be a hero even with a single ability. For instance, the speed that his mother had shown just a few minutes ago can be quite important when dealing with disasters right away. She could answer calls right away and quickly de-escalate the situation before it could get any worse. She could quickly take down villains within a few seconds and help civilians to safety. She could also help transport injured civilians to urgent care centers and hospitals. And since she directed every twist and turn very quickly in a matter of a few seconds, she could quickly resolve situations that are time-based and help as many people Izuku was cut off when a paper bag was dropped in front of him. He was startled. He jumped out his chair. He quickly turned around and came face to face with his grinning mother. You get so serious when you mutter. She giggled. CRP, was he muttering? He really had to work on that. When did you get back? He asked his mother that was getting some cutlery out of the drawer. A minute ago. She grabbed 2 forks and handed one to her son. I didn't want to disturb you since you were going over my speed ability. There are a lot of tasks I can accomplish with just that one power, huh? She smiled to him. He nodded quickly. You were so fast, I didn't even know you moved. You were there, and then you weren't. It was like you had just disappeared. He expressed his shock over how fast she was. He went to the fridge to grab 2 bottled waters. So what other physical changes are there? He remembered the conversation to where they were before Inko had dashed out. Inko and Izuku sat down at the table. Well, you have 3 forms. You have your human form, the one you are currently in now. Then you have your fox form. That form is self-exclamatory. You will become a fox. And then you have your humanoid fox form. The last form will be a bit hard for you to transform into since you haven't had your powers long. She explained. Izuku was absorbing all this information up. A while ago he would have been shocked, but he resigned to expect literally anything now, including him changing forms. He begun to dig in. After a few bites, Inko continued. Your fox form shouldn't be too difficult to change into, since you've been in it before. This made Izuku freeze while about to put a bite into his mouth. He looked at his mother, who was still eating. He put down his fork. I did. When? Because I'm fairly sure I've never had pause before. Why was PRGNT with you? Kitsune pregnancies are similar, but a bit different from human pregnancies. All Kitsune children are in their fox form when still inside the mother. She was reminiscing about when her little fox was inside her. However, the BRTHU was indeed hell. I'm not gonna lie. She shuddered. I couldn't be that terrible. Right? Izuku's sweat dropped. If you're thinking what I think you're thinking, the answer is yes. You were an absolute nightmare. She retorted. His sweat dropped even more. Okay, can you read my mind or what? He exclaimed. No, she replied with a deadpan expression. I'm just not stupid, and you are my son. I can read you like a book written for very dumb children. Okay, that was a bit harsh. He frowned. It was not easy for anyone else either. She pointed her fork at him. You caused 12 disasters to happen when you were being birthed. Izuku choked on the mouthful of his meal from the revelation. All the breakables downstairs shattered. Inko gave him a napkin to spit out his discarded food. When he finished coughing and emptying his water bottle, he looked at his mother for an explanation. Kitsune births cause disasters to happen. When a Kitsune comes into being, the balance of a universe goes crazy and goes into chaos until the Kitsune is fully into being. Thankfully, our family held the disasters back while I was in LBR. If that didn't happen, Japan would not be here anymore. And I don't mean that in a metaphor, I quite literally mean Japan would be non-existent. She dropped a bombshell on her son. Izuku just listened with his eyes wide and unmoving body. All of a sudden, there was a large crash sound and over 3 dozen car alarms were blaring. Both mother and son got up in alarm and went to the window to where the crash was heard. The parking lot right next to the apartment buildings, all cars were wrecked. There were some with all windows shattered, some cars overturned, there was one on fire. Both stared wide-eyed at the destruction. Thank goodness that no one was hurt. I've got to get this under control, Izuku stated while not tearing his gaze from the destruction. Inko nodded. I think that would be best. She replied stoically. A few people gathering around to see what the hell happened. How are they going to explain this? Someone had already called the police. They were sure of it. Izuku, while looking at the damage, his eyes spotted something among the destruction that his mom would be quite interested in. Mom, please tell me you got insurance when you got the car. He asked while looking at the new destroyed car. Honey, with a son like you. It was the first thing I got. She replied. Few hours later, Izuku had just gotten out of the shower. Inko was in the kitchen. Inko was going through a drawer, looking for something that she had put away long ago, and something that she was going to give her child. She finally came upon a small rectangular wooden box. It was covered in markings. They were all converging on the center of the top. At the top was a symbol that looked like a capital. It did not have the line through the middle, and it had a curved line connecting the bottom. She stared at the box for the longest time, wondering if this was the right thing to do. When Izuku was born, Inko had put this away, shoulders slumping and letting out the biggest sigh. She opened the box, and in there were 3 silver necklaces with the same symbol as the one on the box. She remembered how she wore this necklace for centuries. A few days after Izuku was born, she took it off and hid it in a drawer, never to be seen again. This necklace was priceless. She took the middle one out. She held it in her hand for what seemed like hours. No human ever deserved to wear this. But she wasn't human, nor was she playing human anymore. She was a Kitsune, and so was her son. With one final decision, she unclasped the latch and reached behind her and reattached it. She felt like she could breathe now, like she wasn't lying to herself anymore. She felt happy to be free once again. Inko now had an appealing symbol necklace around her neck. She smiled. She grabbed a mirror next to her and held it in front of herself. She looked wonderful with her something old now back with her. Inko was done hiding, done lying to her son and herself. Izuku, can you come here for a second? She called out for her son. She heard footsteps approaching her. Izuku had come from his room in his pajamas with a towel draped over his shoulders. His hair was still damp. Inko went back to the wooden box and took the one on the left out. Yeah, Mom. He greeted back to her. Inko faced her son with a small smile. She walked up to him, and without any hesitation, she reached behind his neck and attacked the chain around his neck. Izuku looked down in curiousness. He tilted his head in confusion. This isn't another power-hiding necklace, right? He looked at his mother with a nervous smile. She shook her head lightly. This is our family crest. It is worn by all members of our family. She told him, her voice ridden with love and wonder. He looked down and caressed the symbol. It was appealing. While he was observing the new accessory, Inko spoke more about it. This necklace is not only to show that you are part of this family, but it is also to remind us that we are never alone. She remembered that back when she was given this for the very first time. She cried tears of joy. She had a family that cared for her, and she would never let them go. Neither would they. Izuku raised an eyebrow in curiousness. You said we have other family, right? Can I meet them? Inko would love for her little fox to meet the rest of the family. She had kept them apart because she had wanted Izuku to live a normal life. That would obviously never happen. She nodded. You'll meet them soon, sweetie. He smiled. The potted plants around the house grew a little bit. His face changed from happy to confusion in an instant. Inko grew worried. What's wrong? What's that noise at the bottom floor? He pointed at his ears. Super senses were going good so far. It's like a squelching sound like liquid is mixing, but it's not. I can tell what it is. He was confused. It's like something sticky is like rubbing at something else sticky. He wondered out loud again. Oh dear God. Sticky sound what dash. She was confused as well, but then finally caught on. Inko was alarmed. Izuku, I think it's time for bed. You've got school tomorrow, and you cannot be late, and you need that beauty sleep. She was shoving him through the hall, speaking so fast that Izuku could barely keep up. But it's only 8:45. He tried to plead with her. He then heard something different. He stopped in his tracks. Wait, now I hear something rattling. What is that? Is that a toy or something? He had another confused face. He was so oblivious. Inko almost exploded. Izuku. Bed. She shoved him into his room and closed the door. She leaned on the door and slumped to the ground in a sitting position. I'm glad Izuku has his senses, but I wished he did not hear that. She could hear it now, too. She's kind of glad, though, that the Andersons can still go that hard, considering they're both in their 80s. She let out a sigh of relief. Super senses also revealed a lot of secrets, even the dirty ones. But Inko was determined to keep her little fox innocent for a little while longer. But if he wanted to meet the family, and if she were going to start getting herself back into the life of a kitsune, then that innocence would not last long. She slumped again and leaned her head back. God help me. Any God. Parenthood is rough. I can only imagine how my mother was. Inko thought. The next day, Izuku is walking up the steps to his apartment. He just finished another school day, and what a day it was. God, today was a day. When he got to school, everyone was glaring at him more than usual. Usually it was just laughing and mocking, but today the looks of them all just spelled murder. They obviously did not take the prank well. Some of them wanted to kick his butt. Some of them wanted to get revenge by sabotaging his food with laxatives. Thank goodness his senses spotted that before he even got his lunch out. He was particularly annoyed by this due to the fact his mother had made him a grilled cheese sandwich and some other stuff that he was really looking forward to. He wanted to let his trickster out again. But last time that happened, he got sent to the principal's office, got most of his classmates pissed at him, and got him in major trouble. Well, he would have gotten in major trouble if it wasn't for his mother's mind control thing. His sub-teacher kept giving him glares all throughout the day. It is safe to say that he can hold a grudge. It was not fun. He also noticed something change in him today. When he received an assignment that all the students were supposed to work on, he noticed that he knew how to solve each and every question right off the bat. It would usually take a few minutes to do the equation and figure out the correct answer. But today, he figured out the entire assignment in less than a minute. It was like his mind was hopped up on Kane. He's never been on any drags before, but he would imagine that was somewhat what it was like. Would drags work on him now? He thought. Ever since the medallion has been taken off, he hasn't been injured. Usually, he would get beat up by Kakin and his little band of pricks. But ever since coming back to school, nothing has happened. To be fair, he's only been back for like 2 days, and he's already pissed off the entire class on his first day. But still, though, the mere sight of himself makes Kakin pissed. Not that he's complaining or anything. It's weird. Back to what he was saying about drags. Ever since taking off the medallion, Izuku has not been injured at all, so he would not need to take any kind of drag. He would usually get headaches, so he would usually take ibuprofen or aspirin. He hasn't had any headaches at all. Was this a result of his healing powers? Most likely, now that he thinks about it. But he has never seen his mom take any kind of drag before in his life. He's never seen her take a cold pill, cough medicine, or aspirin. Now he knows why. She has healing abilities. But the question still stands, would drags still work on him? He would have to ask her once he gets home. And the total number of things he's destroyed today with his emotional powers comes to a lovely number 7. Thankfully, no one connected the dots, or he would have had a lot of explaining to do. And he did not want to do that at all. He doesn't know if this is a Kitsune thing, or if it was just something creepy. Today in the hallways, Izuku saw an elderly-looking woman just standing still. She had a blank face, and she was wearing a hospital gown. She didn't look to be in any pain at all. And if that wasn't the weird thing, no one noticed her, or they didn't notice her and just kept walking and hid it completely well. He was staring at her for a while. The entire time, she wasn't doing anything. She was merely just standing there frozen. He looked in the direction to which she was looking. It was just another student. She was talking for a while with her friend. He was about to go ask the elderly lady if she needed help. But as he was about to, the bell rang, and he had to get to class. So he just left her. He wondered if anyone else had wanted to help her. People couldn't be that heartless, right? And that is how Izuku's school day went. Now he is getting to his apartment, so he could relax and hopefully eat something since he had nothing for lunch. Well, he did have spiked grilled cheese, but Izuku didn't feel like eating laxatives today. Oh my god, he completely forgot. He doesn't produce waste. They wouldn't have done anything. God damn it. He really needs to remember that he is not human anymore. Oh well, he would have something to eat right now. He unlocked his door and entered his home. As he was taking of his shoes, Izuku saw that there were 2 other pairs of shoes. Was someone else here? They never had company. The shoes look expensive. Like rich person expensive. Who was here? His mom was here as well. He sniffed the air. Getting used to his mother's scent was real quick. It was a scent that would forever be ingrained into his memory. He didn't know why, but he felt a calmness run through him whenever he got her scent. Maybe because she my mom. Yeah, that's probably it. Everyone else's scent, except Kakin, just came and went. He would remember his due-to-th fact that he smelled like caramel, mixed with something he couldn't really make out, but all the same was quite lovely. Right now, as he smelled the air, he got several things. Usual smells like everything in the apartment building formed yesterday. But right now, he smelled something different. Way different. He smelled something familiar. This wasn't like a food or anything like a human. No, this scent was kind of like his mother's. But it wasn't. He could smell her as well right next to the others. This was interesting. This brought a new feeling. He felt protected. He felt like there was some sort of connection to these 2 scents that he has never even met before. Weird. He quietly walked to the kitchen door. The door was cracked a little bit, so he could peek in. There on the kitchen table, his mother and 2 others were sitting. He saw Inko's face because she was on the far side. The other 2, he couldn't see their faces because they were sitting facing away from him. He could see the back of them, though. They both had suits on, awfully expensive-looking ones. The one on the left was a female. She looked to have brown hair and a braid. The one on the right was a male. He also had brown hair. His hair was long. It was in a man bun. Who were these people? They were talking with his mother, so they must be friends, right? It was really rude to eavesdrop on a conversation that he was not invited to. He began to head to his room, but as he soon turned around, he was blocked by the woman that was just in the kitchen. He didn't have time to think as he was quickly embraced in a crushing hug. His face was pressed up against her chest. By the gods, it has been too long. She shrieked with glee. She had an accent. Hello. Whoever you are? His voice was muffled. He didn't hug back. Cassandra. We were going to surprise him. You ruined it. The male voice chastised the woman named Cassandra. He also had an accent. I couldn't help it. It has been so long since we have seen him. 13 years since we saw the little kid. Cassandra defended herself. She was still hugging him with bone-crushing strength. Was that her quirk? Probably. I can't breathe, came Izuku's muffled voice. His cries for air were answered as Cassandra released him. Izuku let out a gasp of air. He held his chest and panted for the lovely sensation of air. Let's have a look at you now, Cassandra spoke up again and grabbed the sides of his face. His cheeks were heating up of how she was treating him. She could probably feel it through her palms. As she was inspecting him, he was inspecting her as well. She was quite appealing. Her eyes were brown. She looked to have a strong physique under that expensive suit. What caught him off guard was the necklace around her neck. It was the same as his and his mother's. He glanced at his mother, who was grinning like the devil. He then glanced at the man right next to her. He was wearing the exact same necklace. Did this mean these two were his family? He blinked rapidly at the thought. Oh geez. Inko, when you said he was a skinny human, you weren't kidding. Cassandra interrupted his thoughts. She held up Izuku's arm. He wasn't that skinny. Was he? All right, that's enough. Now let me get a look at him. The man who still had not been identified came up behind Cassandra and bent down to meet Izuku's eyes. Like Cassandra, he had brown eyes and also looked to have a strong build. This was so weird. The man then grabbed him under the forearms and lifted him up like he was as light as a feather. W. What are you doing? Izuku yelped at the man. He didn't answer. He kept a straight face and lightly bounced him like he was testing him out like some sort of product. He had a curious expression. Inko, did he not eat that much when he was still a human? He turned back to his mother while still holding on to him. He's way underweight for a 13-year-old. He explained. Izuku huffed in frustration. He wasn't that small. Maybe a little, but not that much. He ate when he was human, yes. But you know how human bodies are. 2DMN complicated. Plus, he never worked out. His mother finally spoke up. Thanks for the help, Mom. He thought sarcastically. Oh well. The man let him down softly. Izuku huffed again. He turned off to the side. His pouting face was too dim and adorable. He was then enveloped in another hug by the man. This brought him into another shock. Izuku's head was laying on the man's shoulder. It has been too long, little one. I have missed you. He caressed his hair. Izuku's arms were hanging limply by the side. You would think when a complete stranger hugs you, you wouldn't even move or you would want to get away. But no. Izuku felt this longing feeling in him. Like he knew this man from long ago, and he was someone he greatly missed after being away for such a long time. With some hesitation, Izuku raised his arms and hugged the man back. He felt a bit better. He felt his heart flutter. After a few minutes, they let go of each other. The man gave him a warm smile. Izuku returned it. Okay, now that's enough of that. Why don't we all sit down and have a nice cup of tea? Inko suggested. They all nodded. Inko had the kettle on the stove already. She gathered a few cups and passed one out to each of them when the water was ready. The two visitors gave Inko a confused look. Inko noticed. What? She asked. She blinked. They both gestured to the kettle. It looked fine. So what was wrong? Oh, she realized. Sorry, I'm still getting used to using my powers again. She chucked and lifted the kettle from the burner. Izuku tilted his head. What was she doing? Inko waved her hand. Out of nowhere, the kettle started steaming. Of course, she could warm water up in less than a second. He actually wasn't surprised by that. She started to grab what she needed for the tea. She poured the liquid in the cups in front of her son and their guests. The tea had a strange smell to it. It wasn't like the other kinds of tea that he's tasted before. This one was different. They all took a sip of it. The flavor was a bit bitter, but firmer. It needed some milk. Or some sugar. Maybe both. This wasn't like the regular tea he and his mother had. Hey, Mom, what kind of tea is this? I haven't tasted something like this. He gestured to the tea. He took another sip. Oh, the herbs dried just today, so I thought we have it ready for today, for our guests. She gestured to the two sitting opposite of them. But what kind of herbs? You still haven't told me. He asked again. He took another sip. It was actually quite good. Oleander. She took another sip. What? He immediately spit it out to the side. He raced to the sink and turned the faucet on. He drank from the tap viciously. Oh God. OCRP. 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 He turned to his mom. MOM, we have to get the hospital. We see Dash, he hollered. He didn't finish as he saw his mother grinning mischievously at him and recording him on her phone. We'll die, he said, slowly finishing his sentence. He was confused until it hit him. He slumped forward. We're immune to poisons, aren't we? He huffed out. She giggled. I'm surprised you forgot. But yeah, we are immune to pretty much everything lethal-wise that would kill a human or anything else living. And just because they don't affect us doesn't mean they don't taste good. She stopped recording him and poured him another cup to replace the one he spat out. He sat down looking embarrassed. How could he forget that? That was one of the main things he had been thinking about. He took another sip. It was rather good, actually. So now that we have gotten that out of the way, Inko stated, I know it's been a long while since we've been together, she shyly stated at the last sentence. However, we are here now, and I'm glad that we are back together. To be honest, I've missed both of you. I miss the entire family so much. Inko started to tear up. Izuku placed his hand on hers. She placed her other on his to let him know she appreciated her baby being there for her. I'm so glad you answered my call. I kind of expected you guys to tell me to go straight to hell. After I told the entire family that I didn't want Izuku to know any Kitsune things and just lead a human life, I thought you all would hate me and condemn me. But when I heard each and every one of your voices saying that I was always part of the family, I was so happy to know that I still had a family. Tears were streaming down Inko's faces. So, he was correct. These two were their family. Their two visitors placed their hands on the two hands of mother and son. Inko looked up at them. They both had smiles on their face. You were always part of this family. The woman, Cassandra, spoke. Every member of this family will always be there for each other. The male spoke. Remember what this family has always said. They had a saying. And how big is their family? Apart we are unbeatable. The both of them spoke at the same time. They stopped and looked and stared at Inko. They wanted her to finish. Inko smiled. She wiped her tears away. But together, we're unstoppable. She finished. The three adults smiled warmly at each other. Izuku didn't understand that motto. Didn't that mean the same thing? Apart we're unbeatable, but together we're unstoppable. Yeah, I don't understand. After a few minutes of the moment of love and devotion that was going between the three, they finally broke it once they remembered there were still a few things that needed clearing up. Inko cleared her throat. She turned to her son. Izuku, for most of your life, it was only you and I. But that was human US. Not anymore, she declared. We have family. We aren't alone. She gestured to the two that were sitting silently waiting for Inko. Izuku, I'd like you to meet two of our cousins, Cassandra and Alexios. She introduced the two, finally revealing the male's name. Izuku was frozen. So these two were his cousins. All his life, it was just him and his mother. He wanted to know if he had any other family out there. But whenever Izuku asked his mom, she would just change the subject or find a way to get out of the question. Sometimes he kind of felt lonely. Well, more lonely since no one else wanted anything to do with him. From what he understood about family, there were people that loved you and would always be there for you. The only people in his life that was ever like that was his mother. Not Kakin, not Annie Mitsuki, or Uncle Masaru. They had lost contact after their two kids stopped hanging out with each other. There wasn't any fallout or anything, they just drifted away. No one else has shown that type of kindness before in his life. Hell, they treated him like the god DMN Plague, always avoiding him. It made him sad. He wanted someone that wanted to be near him, someone that liked him for who he was instead of what he had. Sometimes he wanted to scream at the world for making him quirkless. He wanted to yell so many profanities that would put Kakin to shame at the world. He wanted to DMN the world to hell for making him like this. Because he was alone. What would this mean? Would this mean he wouldn't have to be alone anymore? Would this mean he didn't have to have something just for people to want to be near him? He wanted to believe it would be like that so bad. But he didn't want to give his hopes up. Having a family didn't always mean good things. He remembered Barry. How his dad just killed him. But from how his mother was towards them, He was sure they weren't like that, but something better. He hopes to God that they're like he wants. Is that selfish? Probably. But Izuku didn't care. He wants this so bad. He wants to not be alone for family holidays. He doesn't want to be alone for family day at school. He didn't want his mother to be alone. He wants his mom and himself happy, surrounded by people who know about them, who won't just come and go. He wants to be with people. He wants to be with people who care about him. So that's what he was going to do. He was going to be with his family. He smiled the warmest smile he could muster. It's nice to finally meet you. I hope we get to know each other well. He politely greeted. They both chuckled. Alexios spoke up. Izuku, we have known you for years. Well, we haven't known you, but we have known about you. He explained. We were there when you were born. The entire family was there when you were born. Cassandra had stated. Huh. Izuku had gone red. They were there for my BRTH. And there were others. How many family members do we have? Why you were there when I was born, he stuttered out. He was going to die of embarrassment. Someone kill him now. Wait. His mom mentioned this yesterday. The whole family had been there to hold back the disasters that Kitsune births caused. They were there for me the first few months after your BRTH. They hadn't agreed with me putting the medallion on you. They were all quite against it. Inko's sweat dropped, but they all stuck with me until I could get my footing in human shoes. She explained, and now you're back to what you always were, and what you were meant to be. Cassandra took another sip of her poison tea. Could I ask a question? Izuku nervously asked. Do you remember what kind of disasters I caused when I was being born? Because I was just wondering what would have happened if you all weren't there to help my mom. As we remember, you caused about 12. If it weren't for us, Japan would not be here. Alexios repeated the same thing his mother said yesterday. Yes, she said that already, but what kind of disasters? Was I really capable if that much from just being born? Izuku asked the question again. You caused plenty to happen. When we say 12 disasters, we mean 12 kinds of disasters. You could have caused several hurricanes, earthquakes, snowstorms, tornadoes, tsunamis. Cassandra listed them off. Each one felt like a hammer nailing down on his brain. Then there was that volcanic eruption, the plague, thunderstorm, floodings, few fires, avalanches, and a few droughts. Alexios finished off. Okay, that was a bit too much. I could have caused all that. If they hadn't been there, I could have caused a lot of people to die. I'm sure of it. Izuku was in shock. He had his eyes wide and his mouth open in complete horror. He was pale as a ghost. Suddenly, shatter. They all looked up, and all had grim expressions. Oh God, what did I break now? Alexios broke the silence. I see his power is doing nicely. He stated. Do we even want to know what that was? Izuku asked the question to which they were all dreading. Inko placed a hand on her son's shoulder. I think I'd be best if we didn't. Inko suggested. However, they all knew it was the entire building's windows. Yeah, they might have to move. So, what else does he know? She asked Izuku and Inko. Nothing much really. 2 of his senses still haven't come in, and he doesn't know how to do anything else. Inko shyly explained while scratching the back of her head. But once he gets all 5, I'm planning on teaching him basics. Inko spoke up again. Well, hopefully they come in soon. It's dangerous out there in the world, even for a Kitsune. Alexios explained. Are you going to teach him how to fight after he gets down the basics? Alexios questioned. Fight? He was going to learn how to fight. Ugh, that's the thing, She avoided eye contact and scratched her head again. I was hoping the rest of the family could teach him how to fight. I haven't battled anyone in a long time. I mean, the last time I ever physically engaged with someone, I just tore out their heart. Wait, I'm going to learn how to fight. Izuku spoke up on the conversation on him. Well, yes, sweetie. You can't just win on powers alone. And plus, if there's no one else I would trust you with, then with the family. Our entire family knows how to fight. And these 2 were mercenaries a while back. She told her son. You 2 were mercenaries. He turned to them in shock. Of course we will train him. And yes, we were mercenaries. We were known as the Eagle Bearers. Cassandra revealed their mercenary names. The Eagle Bearers. That's such a cool name. That sounds like the name of pro heroes. Izuku praised. Why were you 2 called the Eagle Bearers? He asked after the praise. We had an eagle that traveled with us all the time. He was our friend. Ikaros was his name. And for the tale of the Eagle Bearers, legend has us as the two mighty sibling warriors who came from Zeus himself, that they were undefeatable. They carried the mighty eagle of Zeus himself to watch over them. Alexios was waving his hands around like he was telling a tall tale. Oh, so they were siblings. I thought they were husband and wife. Good thing he didn't say that out loud, or he would be having a bad day. You talking about Greek gods. Were you two part of Greece when you guys were mercenaries? Maybe that's why they have those accents. We were born in Greece. We are Spartan Kitsune. Cassandra gestured to herself and her brother. It's been a while since we have been in Greece. However, we have been all over the world in our time of living. Alexios explained. How old are you guys? Izuku seriously hoped that wasn't ruse to ask. We are about 2,444 years old. Cassandra had revealed. And I am 2,441. Alexios revealed. So Alexios was the younger sibling. Okay, interesting. And what's more interesting was that they were half as old as his mother. He was going to have to get used to having incredibly old family members, since he had a feeling the other members had similar ages. Was he the youngest? Probably. Inko was watching from the side as her son and her family were interacting with each other. She loved it so much. She missed this so much. Being with the people who she cares about around her, and the people that care about her around her. Now she has her son around them as well. Since you two were in ancient Greece, did you ever meet King Leonidas? Izuku asked, his fascination already peeking out of his hole. The two sibling eyes grew wide. They glanced at each other. They then nodded to Inko, who returned it and pulled out her phone to record. We did not, unfortunately, in life. But we did get to meet our grandfather when we gained entrance to Elysium when trying to figure out something important. She smiled at the many bombs dropped on her cousin. Shatter, and there goes the next building. So many questions were pulled from that sentence alone, but one stood out the most. Izuku pointed at himself. Aor Yowayu saying that I'm related to King Leonidas. Izuku stuttered out. They all nodded. I'm definitely going to need to lie down after this. Izuku croaked out. They all giggled at the shock of their cousin and son. Inko put her phone away. Inko broke the silence. Will you two be staying for dinner? They both nodded. That night at dinner, the four had Katsude on. Izuku asked them so many questions, which they were glad to answer. The siblings told the tale of the eagle bearers and some of their adventures. How no one could best either of them in combat. No matter how hard they tried, how they met some of the most famous people in ancient Greece, how they took down an entire cult hell-bent on killing their entire family that had also taken control of all the world. Izuku could not get enough of it. He loved his cousins. They were so cool. Izuku wanted to stay up later and talk more, but he had to get to bed since it was still school night. But the sibling promised they would hang out more tomorrow. With Izuku fast asleep in bed, Inko washing dishes, and the two siblings getting ready to head out, it seemed like a calm night. Except one more thing had to be cleared. Alexios came behind Inko. Are you going to tell him? He asked. Inko never turned back. About what? About them. Cassandra was behind Inko now. She didn't respond. A few seconds of silence with just the sound of swishing water against dishes. About Diana and Amara. Yeah, I will. Inko spoke. That's not who they were talking about. And them. Alexios questioned. Inko started to tremble. No, not unless he asks. She shakes her head. He will find out. Even if he wasn't a kitsune, he is still a smart kid. Cassandra insisted. Inko sighed. I know, or I won't let her get anywhere near him. After what she did, I'm just not ready to forgive her. And as for him, there is no way in hell. The two siblings looked at their cousin with sadness and concern. There is no way I will let Izuku anywhere near Alistair. Izuku could not focus throughout school. Last night was so amazing. He met two of his cousins he never knew he had. He was so happy. They talked so much about their adventures in Greece. They met so many amazing people. They did so many incredible things. They were amazing. They were his cousins, his family. It was still weird to even think that. Someone other than his mother is his family. Now, comes the part where it was hard to focus in class. For one thing, is his emotional powers of happiness won't calm down. On the way over to school, every potted plant had either doubled in size or spread over into other areas. Even though nothing was breaking like when he was in a negative mood, it was still problematic. It caused a lot of heads to turn towards the new grown flowers. When he got to school, every flower in the school bloomed. It was actually kind of nice to have a bit of color in the bleak school, giving a cheery vibe instead of grim one. It was quite elevating. The past few days, he only ever felt the dreadful emotions, and for that he has gotten used to breaking stuff with his emotions. Now that he is feeling happy ones, he can feel the difference between the two when it gets released. The bad emotions, he imagined a balloon. The balloon would be him, and the air would be the feelings and emotions. Whenever he would feel anger or anxiety, the balloon would start to fill up, and once it got too big, it popped. And when it popped, something would break. With happiness and excitement, he imagined the sun, his body the sun, and his emotions the heat and light. It was different than the balloon. Unlike the balloon, it didn't need to build up. Like the sun, he was radiating heat, and instead of heat, it was happiness. When happiness was released, plants all around would grow wildly. It was amazing. Izuku wondered what else he could do if he could just make plants grow and break things with his emotions. However, something else happened when he was happy, and that is what lead us to now, the middle of the school day. The entire class was looking over an assignment that they were supposed to work on. While it was difficult to the other students, it was extremely easy for Izuku. He knew the equations to solve the problems. He did not know how fast he could solve them all. He solved the entire page in less than a minute. He completed the entire assignment in less than 3 minutes. With his task completed, Izuku had some free time. What to do? What to do? He repeated in his head. He did not know what to do. Why don't I update my Kitsune book? He thought. He pulled a notebook out of his yellow bag. No one paid attention to him. Not that they ever did, but still got to make sure. He opened up to the page about his 2 cousins. The left page was on Cassandra, the right Alexios. Their faces drawn on the top right-hand side of both pages. Written in capital letters on the top. The Eagle Bearers. He began to write about them. The Eagle Bearers. 2 Greek Kitsunes. Back then, during the Peloponnesian War. The 2 were born while Spartans and Persians were at war with each other. They were not soldiers to either side. They were mercenaries. They have traveled around all of Greece, and they have come across warriors comparable to All Might himself. They participated in many things in the Greek world. The 2 siblings conquered even the greatest of thugs and warriors across the land. They were unbeatable. Cassandra is the older sibling by a few years. Alexios is the younger. Since they are over 2,000 years old, they must be 9-tailed kitsunes. I haven't seen them use any of their powers, unless you count poison immunity. They seem extremely caring over my mom and me. Cassandra nearly crushed me in a hug. I felt like I was going to be snapped in half. They told me how they were granted permission to go to the underworld. They met their grandfather, who was also a kitsune, and was killed in battle. King Leonidas. How they battled the underworld guardian, Cerberus, the 3-headed dog. They led a rebellion against Persephone herself, and they were briefly rulers of Atlantis, working by Poseidon. They didn't tell me much after that. I assumed something terrible happened following working in Atlantis. I wonder if I could go one day. In great bold letters on the side of all the writing was a side note. I am related to King Leonidas. Izuku was extremely shocked to hear that he was family to one of the biggest Greek historical figures. Just thinking about it gives him goosebumps. He could feel his emotions radiating off his body. This was so amazing. Izuku was about to continue when a sudden interruption had taken place. Hey, what's going on with my phone? A student in the front questioned out loud. Everyone looked to the front, leaving their work behind. The kid was holding his phone up in front of his face, and the screen was all static. It looked like it had a software problem. All the students thought that this was just waste of time and thought the kid was stupid to get all worked up about a phone. Hey, something is wrong with mine, too. Another student off to the left side. The entire class looked in her direction, and she held it up for the class to see. Just like the first one, the phone was all static and was glitching like crazy. Now, the class was starting to get suspicious. Thankfully, the teacher had left to go get a coffee from the lounge. Guys. Another kid in front of Izuku had spoken up hesitantly. He was looking at his phone that was clutched in his hand. He got up and turned his phone around. What's going on? Just like the others, it was the same result. This was concerning. Now the students were all confused and a bit worried. One by one, all students pulled their devices out. Izuku pulled his out to see the exact same thing. Was this a quirk? All the students were now groaning that their cellular devices were not working. They tried to push a few buttons on the side to make them do something else. Nothing. They would not even turn off. What the hell is happening? Some tried shaking them, bashing them, waving it around. Nothing was working. They all stayed the same. Well, class has officially been interrupted once again by the lovely presence of technology. Izuku thought bitterly. He wore a deadpan expression. He looked down at his phone in confusion. This couldn't be him, right? He wasn't feeling anxious or angry. He was feeling happy not just a minute ago. And even if he was in a sour mood, it breaks things, not gives your technology viruses. So this had to be a quirk, right? If that is the case, then who is doing this? Izuku looked around wildly. He gazed upon each and every student who were currently panicking about their phones. He was trying to find someone that didn't seem peeved. Nope, not a person wasn't pissed about this. His class loved their phones. Everyone was getting angry. This wasn't going to be good. I had just bought this. What the hell? Kakin exclaimed. He was not happy. Well, to be fair, when was he ever? The class was still in an uproar when the door slid open. In came his sub-teacher. He came in and stared in confusion at his wild class. No one but Izuku even acknowledged him except for Izuku. He cleared his throat. No one did anything. He tried once again. Still nothing but everyone's wild personalities running amok. The teacher finally had enough. He walked up to the podium in front of the classroom and grabbed a big textbook. OCRP, what was he going to do? Izuku thought. He walked up to the closest kid's desk. The kid in the seat was not even paying attention. Slam. The entire class was silenced as the book was slammed down to make a scary noise. They all looked to where the sound came from. They all immediately paled. Their teacher was glaring at them with anger and disappointment. I'll leave this classroom for no more than 5 minutes. You are all mature enough to behave yourselves when I am not present. Or at least I thought you were. He glared at them all. Explain yourselves, all of you. He ordered the entire class with a tone that left no room for defiance. He was mad. Very mad. I didn't do anything wrong. Izuku mentally screamed. A student hesitantly stood up. Sir, our phones went all haywire on us. We thought it was something serious. She held up her phone to show the teacher, and true to her word, it had gone haywire. He examined the phone, presented to him. He then looked up at the rest of the class, and they all had their phones up to show him. They all had the same result. The teacher had dove into his pocket and retrieved his phone. He gasped lightly as his phone was the same as his students'. His expression was puzzled for a moment before regaining his composure and putting his phone away. He turned back to address the class. Well, regardless of your technology issues, you are all in school at the moment. And as such, you should be focusing on your academic studies. I expect better form you in the future. He reprimanded his class. Midoriya, he called out, turning to the green-eat. Startled, Izuku shakily stood up. Oh, why yes, sir. Pack your stuff and turn in your assignment. You're signed out for the day, the sub stated. Wait, what? He was signed out. By whom? His mom is at work. No one could sign him out other than family. Sir, who signed me out? Izuku asked. The sub raised his head at the question. He dug into his pocket and produced a small note. Your cousins, Alex and Casey Itos. It did not take a genius to know who those two were. You have cousins. Bakuga muttered while looking at the green-eat. He only knew of Inko as his only family, so this was a surprise to him. Izuku didn't respond. Why were they taking me out of school? Izuku thought as he packed up his belongings. Did something happen? I really hope not. He made his way to the front of the classroom to turn in his assignment to his teacher. The sub had a small glare pointed towards him. Guess he still isn't over the prank I did. Hopefully it won't cause any future complications. He walked off into the hallway towards the front office where his cousins were waiting. As soon as he left the classroom, everyone's phones started working again. Everyone was glad, all except for Bakugo. He looked to the door to where Izuku had left. He was growing curious as to what had happened. Izuku made his way to the front office, and there they were sitting in the lobby of the front office were his two cousins, Cassandra and Alexios. They got up once they saw him enter and approached him. Alexios spoke first. Are you ready? Izuku looked between the two. Where are we going? He asked meekly. Cassandra put her hand on his shoulder to steer him out of the school. "We are going to have some fun." She grinned evilly at him. Izuku's sweat dropped. Mizutafu General Hospital Inko was having a usual day at work. She was a nurse at the general hospital. She was used to almost everything being over 5,000 years old. She had taken up this job because she wanted to blend in with the human life. She had gained the knowledge of every medical study and department years ago. She had learned them quickly, 1 month to be exact. Kitsunes are extremely fast learners. Over the years of her long life, she had picked up all the knowledge she could get her hands on. She had an amazing base of knowledge of the medical professions before she turned to human life. But as she got her position at the hospital, she was basically a god doctor. She had created medical treatments that would further improve the state of health of someone by 100%. She had given her research to any hospitals that needed it. Thought she would send them anonymously. She never needed praise for helping people. The happiness of recovered patients and families were more than enough. There was one thing that did make her mad when delivering her research. Someone always took credit for it. They take credit for something they did not do a single thing on, and they gained fame and fortune. Inko absolutely hated that. The people who gained from other people's LBR. She had come across many of those kinds of people in her life. She was very not fond of them. In fact, she despised them. Every time she got word of that sort of thing, Inko had either compelled them to be better or had killed them if the situation had called for it. Now she doesn't do any of that anymore. She is now a nurse at a hospital, and every day she helps patients in her care heal. And in all those years that she was employed, she never once used her powers. Inko never used her powers to do anything. She had stuck to her promise well. However, after revealing everything to Izuku, she had started to SE her powers again. She had used her senses to spot out things in her patients that were concerning, and if someone was a few miles away and traveling to the hospital with an emergency, she had been ready with everything at the ready, and all people needed to assist. Some people had stated her quirk was some psychic ability, but they all knew her quirk was attraction of small objects. Now her day started out well, but it was about to get a lot more annoying. Inko had finished checking on a patient that just had surgery the previous day and was happy to report that she was recovering well. One of her co-workers, Mirai, was coming up to her with a file in her hands. "Hey Inko, how are you doing on this fabulous day?" She greeted in a cheery tone. Inko glanced up from her papers at her co-worker with puzzled smile. "Good. And you? You seem really happy right now." Inko sensed her good mood from the heart rate. She also had a grin. "I'm most particular happy because tonight, I'm going on a date with that guy I was telling you about." Mirai gushed with pep. "The dancer?" Inko questioned. "Yeah, I finally got the courage to ask him out, and he said yes." She was shaking with excitement. "I'm going once my shift ends," which, she looked at her watch, "is in 5 minutes, so I'm really excited." She gushed out her excitement. "Well, I hope you guys have a great time wherever you two are going." "Which is?" Inko wanted to know more about the man. Mirai started filling out her reports. "Well, it was hard to decide, but we're going to concert," she explained while looking up from writing. "Well, have fun. Don't drink while driving. Don't take anything anyone offers you. And make sure you sanitize your hands before and after you touch anything in a public bathroom." Inko started to list off the dangers. "Oh, come on. The bathrooms aren't that bad," Mirai retorted, waving it off. Inko turned from her papers and gave her co-worker a knowing look. Mirai glanced up. "I'll bring 2 bottles." She relented. Inko giggled. They just about finished their paperwork when Bitchy arrived. "Ladies, why are you just goofing off instead of doing your jobs?" A feminine voice called from behind. They both turned around and had to try hard not roll their eyes. It was one of the top doctors. Doctor lingered. The reason why she was one of the top was because she had a quirk that could reconfigure bone structure in someone's body. That was another thing Inko had hated. People who have healing quirks get the best positions and the best pay just because of quirks. Not because of their hard work. Not because of their dedication. Because of something that was given to them. She has also threatened to quit multiple times when there were dire patients in need of assistance unless they go with her demands. Her demands were she could have her own staff to boss around. She could get a better pay than many people here. She could also come and go as she pleases. She was a terrible, selfish, greedy human. Inko absolutely despised her. Now she was questioning both nurses for slacking off. I'm filling out a few papers. Inko gestured to the stack on the counter. Same, and it's almost the end of my shift. Mirai explained. Dr. Lingard smirked. Well, it's not the end of your shift yet, and there's a patient in exam room 4 with your name on it. She handed a file to Mirai. She was hesitant to take it. It's nearly the end of my shift, and why me? Why not you? Number 1, it's not the end of your shift yet. And number 2, I am busy with something else just as important. She stated. Inko read her mind. She did not have something important to do. She just didn't want to do it. That was another thing. This beach did not care about her patients at all. Well, an examination will take some time, and I have plans. Mirai tried to argue. Well, then you better get a move on, she ordered, pushing the file into her arms. She didn't wait for a response before walking away to do something not important at all. They both held their tongue till she was out of earshot. She was a big bully. That was wildly known. Mirai grimaced. She placed a folder on the counter and covered her face with her palms and dragged them down. Well, guess I gotta cancel. God, what a beach. She mumbled so no one could hear. Inko heard her perfectly. Yeah, 100%. Inko agreed. She felt bad for her friend. Mirai huffed. She sat up straight. Okay, maybe if I get this done and don't change on my way, maybe I could still make it. She started to mutter. You probably aren't. Inko might regret this. But hey, if she could let her friend go on a date with a hot human, then hell, she was going to help her. Inko sighed, then put down her papers she was holding. Come on, give it here, she instructed. Mirai turned to her shocked. Booby you, but you have other things to do, and I don't want to give the but a reason to get mad at us. She tried to argue. Inko was not having any of it. No. Don't give me the CRP. Come on, give it. Go have fun. Inko held her hand out for the folder. She kept hold to it. Are you sure? Mirai asked. Yes, now go before Diarba comes back. Inko assured her. Mirai sighed in relief. She finally handed it over. Thank you so much. I owe you. She thanked her friend. She walked down the hall to the locker room. She turned back and pointed. You the best, she exclaimed. DMN right I am. Inko grumbled to herself. A few minutes later, after getting everything she had done and getting what was necessary, Inko knocked on the door to exam room 4. Hello, Inko greeted. How are you today? In the room was a 20-something-year-old woman with a baby in her lap. The woman was blonde. She had a smile and was bouncing the baby to keep her calm. Good, the mother replied. Inko stepped in and sat down in front of them. So what seems to be the problem? Inko questioned. Well, it's not me. It's my little ball of sunshine. She sang the last part and looked at her kid. She's been having a runny nose, and she's been really hot lately. Also, she's been coughing for the last few days. I know I might seem a little worried for nothing, but I just want to make sure nothing bad is happening with her. The mother ranted. Don't apologize. It's normal for a parent to be worried for their kid. Inko waved her off. You will be surprised of how many people don't come in for little things, and it turns out to be way more serious. Inko explained. Inko asked the usual questions. The mother responded with full cooperation. The mother gives her kid BRSD milk. She makes sure she sleeps regularly, gives her all the necessary vitamins. Everything seems pretty well. Inko also checked whether she had anything serious with her powers. She just had a cold. Another Kitsune ability was to detect whether a human has any sort of illness. It was quite handy for a medical worker. Everything seems normal. Inko was just done filling out her findings when something caught her eye. The vaccinations were not there. Inko flipped through a few papers to see if she misplaced it or something. Is everything all right? The mother questioned worriedly. Yeah, nothing to worry about. I just can't find your daughter's vaccination records. Inko explained. She was about to get up and go see if she can find them. Oh, we're not getting vaccinations. The mother stopped Inko before she could get to the door. This statement made Inko freeze. Her eyes widened, and her face frozen in a perfect poker face. You gotta be kidding me. Inko turned back to the mom, who was currently tickling her child. She was acting like what she said wasn't at all concerning at all. She took a deep breath, then exhaled as calmly as possible. Inko sat back down in front of the mother. This was not how she imagined her day to go. Could I ask why you're not getting your daughter vaccinated? Inko really hoped this wasn't going to where she thought it was going. The gods laughed at the Kitsune. Well, I read up online that vaccines can cause autism. And I also read that they don't really work, so I mean, why bother getting it right? She tried to reason. Unbelievable. Over her years, Inko has come across a lot of stupid people in her life. The stupidity of humanity never ceases to surprise her. Human bodies were incredibly fragile and defenseless. When Izuku had a human body, Inko had gotten him all the vaccinations necessary because she knew the dangers that could cause due to the lack of medicine. And that bullshit that vaccines can cause autism is just that. Absolute bullshit. She wanted to kill Wakefield for creating that goddamn myth. Without vaccines, the human race would be F. Inko absolutely hated anti-vaxxers. The only logical reason someone cannot be vaccinated is if the person cannot be immunized for medical reasons. Some think that someone who went up online has more knowledge than someone that took up years and years of medical school. She hasn't compelled people at the hospital before, and doesn't want to be doing this all the time. But if she could help people, then she would help people. Inko walked up to the mother and was face to face with her. The mother looked up in confusion and was about to ask what she was doing, but never got the chance. You're going to get your kid vaccinated. You're going to disregard any anti-vaxxer CRP that is in your mind. Medicine works. Schedule a vaccination appointment for your daughter as soon as possible. Inko sat back down. The mother had a blank face for a second. She then smiled. Can I schedule an appointment for my daughter? She asked, doing a complete 180 on her mindset. Of course. If you go to reception, they can refer you to a pediatrician that can administer all that is needed for your girl. Inko directed. Other than that, your daughter just has a common cold. Nothing too serious. Inko explained. Inko finished up and returned to her duties like usual. She did not know she would be doing that today, but humanity had to always be saved from its own stupidity. With Izuku, Cassandra, Alexios, so it turns out that the two siblings were not on the list of authorized personnel to sign out Izuku from school. He asked how they did it. They compelled the staff to put them on the list. One thing led to another, and they could now get him out of school for the day. It was kind of nice to be done for the day with school, away from all those people who hated him. They had taken him back to his apartment and told him to go change into some regular clothes. School clothes were uncomfortable anyways. The siblings weren't wearing their fancy clothes today, simple clothing that you would see every day. They didn't tell him why to change, other than they were going to go for a walk. At the moment, they were at the park, walking by the river. No one had said a word ever since arriving. After a few minutes of walking and enjoying the scenery, they stopped. The siblings had sat on a bench with space in the middle. They both looked at him and gestured for him to sit down in between them. He didn't really have any protest against it. He sat down in between them. They basked in the silence for a few minutes. Izuku was getting confused. Why they just brought him here to just not talk? It was weird. He looked up at his cousins to see if they were doing anything. To his surprise, they were still as statues. They were just lightly smiling forward. Izuku looked in the direction to which the two were staring. It was just the water, the wooden fence, and the tall building just beyond the river. Izuku was full-on confused. Could they see something that he couldn't? Probably, but what? After a few more minutes of silence, Izuku finally felt like asking something. He turned to Alexios. As he was about to open his mouth, Alexios put a finger to his lips, signaling to be quiet and not say a word. Izuku slumped forward in defeat with a deadpan look. What the hell were they waiting for? Whatever it was slow. Izuku did not know what to do, since he wasn't allowed to talk. An idea then pooped in his head. He could listen with his enhanced hearing. He has not listened in nature yet, so this could be interesting. He focused on his hearing. It took him a few seconds, but he finally got it. He could hear everyone and everything in the park. He could hear people talking. He could hear a dog panting while running. He could hear the water running through a fountain. One of the best things he loved to listen to was the sound of people's heartbeats. He liked to listen to it so much, it was almost like a tempo at a different pace each time. Each one sounded different. The volume of it could be a baby or an adult. The pace means something different every time. Right now, he could hear one going at a fast pace. He could also hear someone panting right next to it. Someone was working out, Izuku deduced. He listened again for another heartbeat. He found one. This one was slow. It was also very tiny as well. He could also hear soft breathing. A sleeping baby. He listened again. This one was different. It was like it had a disturbance. It was like this person was sick. Like his heart wasn't working right. Is he okay? Is he aware? Close your eyes. Cassandra spoke. He was knocked out of his concentration when he heard her words. He looked up to her, and she was smiling down at him as if she were waiting. He looked forward again. Izuku took a deep breath and shut his eyes. He listened again. Concentrate. Izuku thought to himself. His hearing was enhanced again. He searched for the heartbeat that seemed abnormal. Where is it? Izuku was having trouble finding it. He heard the sleeping baby and the jogging person. He also found a beehive full of a lot of bees. Damn it. Why was it so hard to find it? Izuku started to growl in desperation. Don't go looking for them. Let them come to you. Alexios calmly instructed. Izuku didn't open his eyes, but he followed the man's words. He stopped trying so hard. Izuku took a deep breath and relaxed. In and out, in and out, in and out. He mentally went through breathing exercises. Calm down. Don't look for them. Let them come to you. He repeated in his mind. Everything changed. He could hear so much more now. He could hear the blood flow in people's veins. He could hear someone brush their hair out of their face. He could hear birds flapping their wings, for to be exact. But the weird thing was that he could hear them all and not get them mixed up. He could tell how far away they were by just hearing them. How is this possible? He could now hear everything in the park. And he means everything. He can even hear the wind go across the leaves. In the trees. He opened his eyes in shock and amazement. He jumped up and turned to face his cousins, his mouth gaping in awe. How is that possible? I've only been able to concentrate on one thing at a time. But now, I was able to concentrate on everything. It was like I was multitasking on several different things at once. He turned around and faced the glistening water. It was like all the sound were a conversation, and I could tell what each of them were saying at the same time without losing focus. He turned back around looking for an explanation. How is that possible? Izuku exclaimed. He could process all the sounds at once and identify them faster than any device could even calculate. Both of the kitsunes on the bench were smiling very fondly at the little kitsune. The reason you can focus on them all at the same time without losing focus is that while a human brain can process information at a certain pace that won't overload their brain, kitsunes can process far more information in little time, far more faster than any machine could. Cassandra explained. Izuku gave puzzled look. So, the reason I was able to do that was because I can think faster than normal people. Well, to begin, you are not normal. Alexios gave Izuku a knowing look. For a kitsune, you're thinking normal. But compared to a human, you are beyond anything they can even imagine. Haven't you noticed the past few days that you have been becoming faster? Izuku tilted his head up, thinking back. He has been getting faster, way faster. His mom said he would, but he did not expect it to be like this. When focusing on his academic studies, he has always been good at them. These last few days, however, were unreal. He felt as if he was on a drag that can speed up processing power. He could figure everything out in less than a minute. No one had noticed, thank God. If they had, they would have thought he were cheating. And that was the last thing he wanted. Izuku looked back to his cousins. They were still waiting for an answer. Yeah, I have noticed. My mom said it would change, but I didn't know it would be this dramatic. I thought maybe it would be just a slight boost or something. Izuku recalled. You want to know more? Is this what kitsunes are like all the time? He asked with glee dripping from his voice. Oh no, we are faster. Plus you only awakened your true self a few weeks ago. A toddler kitsune can think faster than you. Cassandra admitted with no hesitation at all. Izuku felt like his whole world just shattered. He stared at them in shock and horror. To be honest, it kind of stung to be called dumber than a toddler. Izuku faltered and slumped forward. That's so mean. He was tearing up, but it was not taken seriously since the sight was absolutely adorable. They both laughed at the little kid. It's not funny, he pouted. Do not worry, little one. With time and practice, you will be getting a lot stronger. Alexios reassured Izuku. He then patted the seat Izuku previously sat in. Now come and sit, and put that fox nose of yours to work. Izuku looked at them confused. He had just said his hearing. Was he going to use all his senses? But he still has two he needs to get. Sight and touch. Was his sense of smell off as well? Well, only one way to find out. He sat back down. Now close your eyes again, but this time instead of using your ears, use your nose. And don't go out searching. Let everything come to you. Alexios instructed. The two siblings each put a hand on a shoulder to encourage the teenager. Okay, you can do this, Izuku mentally told himself. Izuku closed his eyes. He lifted his head and sniffed the air once. It was all starting to come to him. Several scents started to fill his system. The grass in the park, the moist dirt, the salt of the sea, the smell of flowers. After he got the sense of nature down, he started to identify the scents of humans. There were a lot. Sweat, lotion, hard gel, perfume, it was all so strong. But he wasn't repelled by them like last time. Instead, he just registered them as that, smells. He then smelled the scent of cigarettes. One was different than the others. He then got it. One was lit, and the others were just in the box. He smelled smoke coming from that one as well. He then smelled chocolate. Someone must have candy with them. Izuku could go further. He knew he could. Let them come to you. He went deeper. He could now smell all the way to the end of the street. And that was saying something. The Kitsunes were in the deepest part of the park. It was a mile long. He could smell everything in the park. Everything. An assortment of foods. Someone must be having a picnic. Dog hairs on several people passing by. The smell of dogs weren't strong enough for the actual thing to be here, nor were the other scents that were with a canine. But the smell of them were on several pedestrians' clothing. Wait, BLD. He focused a bit more on that scent. It wasn't a lot. Did someone have a cut or something? Was it serious? Should he go help him? As Izuku was mentally debating with himself, Cassandra butted in his mental debate. He just has a bloody nose. It's nothing to be concerned about. She informed him. Izuku opened his eyes. He looked at her with relief. That would have been bad. He let out a big sigh of relief. Now try your taste. Alexios spoke up. Huh. How is he supposed to do that in the outside when he doesn't have anything to snack on? That confused him a lot. He was about to ask, but then he realized that he had to trust them if he were to understand. So he closed his eyes again. He stuck his tongue out. It looked rather comical, but Izuku did not care one bit. He was going to understand this. Holy SHD. He tasted things in the air. How in the absolute hell was this possible? He could taste salt in the air. It was from the ocean. Copper. From a man's BLD something he can't identify, but all the same tastes amazing. Holy CRP. He can taste the honey from the beehive. While Izuku was doing this, the siblings noticed how off to the sides there were multiple flowers growing all around. Izuku was very happy. After a few more minutes of playing around with his taste buds, they were ready to take it to the next level. Now, without stopping your taste, start using your hearing. Then once you have got that one done, start your sense of smell till all three are in sync. Cassandra instructed. Without losing focus, Izuku started to activate his hearing. He closed his mouth. The taste was still there. He could now hear everything gained from earlier, only now that there were a few new sounds in the park. He could hear a few new heartbeats and a conversation going on. Now, with two of his senses activated at the same time, it was like he could make out a picture. It was sort of like a blurs, but each with different sound coming off them. It was like he was seeing in a different Bison, like some kind of quirk. Now come smell. He thought. He sniffed the air. All the scents returned to him. He could smell the animals and the food and the people. He smelled everything. The picture became clearer. He could now make out more details. It was now as if he could pinpoint exactly where one was. Instead of blurs now, he could make out silhouettes in his area. Everything became clearer. One thought came to Izuku's mind. This was amazing. The flowers beside the kitsunes were now full-on flower beds and bushed of appealing, colorful flowers. Izuku was ecstatic. The eagle-bearers knew he had gained this level now. They had proud smiles painted on their faces. It was time to get the other two. Izuku, now, we're going to do something more. And I need you to do exactly what we say. Okay. Alexios spoke to the boy who was still in his enhanced state. Izuku nodded his head, not once breaking focus. Cassandra spoke up this time. Place your hands on the bench palms all the way flat. She instructed. He did just that, laying his hands on the wood of the bench. Cassandra continued. Now, as I say these things, I want you to keep focusing on your other senses while also doing as we ask, okay? Once again, he nodded. They were ready to begin. What you're feeling right now is nothing. You haven't allowed yourself to feel, to sense. Cassandra began. Alexios took over. As a human, you cannot feel much, but no more. You are no longer human. You are a kitsune. They were talking back and forth. As a kitsune, you can dig deeper. You can go deeper. Feel the ridges underneath your fingers. Feel all the creases and cracks beneath them. Izuka did as he was told. He felt all that was underneath his palms. He rubbed along all the cracks along the bench. But don't just stop there. Use your feet as well to feel along the ground. He rubbed the sole along the ground. It was kind of hard to detect with his shoes on, but he managed. He kept focusing on his other senses. Feel around yourself. Feel the vibrations going on with the world. He felt something. He started to feel the bench. It was like his mind was fluid and the fluid was pouring into the bench. He could now feel the strain it had by the 3 kitsunes upon it. He felt the vibrations going on in the bench. 2 big vibrations on either side of him. His cousins. They were helping him. Feel the air around yourself as you breath and as the wind goes. Their voices were becoming alluring to him. The air around him. He could now pay attention to it. He could feel how his breathing affected the area around him. It was like a disturbance he could sense. He could now feel the water just upon them swishing all around. He could feel its movement. He could feel so much more now. This time they spoke at the same time. Feel everything. It was like a giant pulse had emitted from Izuku. It traveled all around. He could now detect so much more. He could feel the air all around him being disturbed by so many things in the vicinity. He felt each and every person breathing and movement disturb the air around them. He felt the ground shaking as everyone took a step in a direction. He could feel as if some sort of sonar were going on. Was this how animals navigated the world? Probably, because this was God dimming, amazing the pulse and the vibrations traveled everywhere in the park, up to the branches and the trees and down into the ant holes in the grounds. He always saw on YouTube how ant holes were like underneath, but now he could sense what it was like perfectly. He could even sense every ant there was. He thinks he should be getting sensory overload, but he didn't, and that was so amazing. This was unreal. He could detect each and every step someone took as if it were shown for him. The picture had gained a lot more detail. The silhouettes now had outlines and details surrounding them. It was like he was seeing in another Bison. It was like he was seeing with his eyes everywhere in the park, only his eyes were closed. Even though they were closed, he could see so much more. Now open your eyes. Alexios calmly told. He didn't want to. He wanted to see this all the time. He wanted to experience this nonstop. When he refused, Alexios spoke again. Izuku, open your eyes and see everything. Izuku relented. He slowly started to open his eyes while still trying to focus on the world around him. The light started to illuminate his world. Wait, something is different. Izuku gasped as he opened his eyes. He unlocked all his senses. Everything looked brighter. Everything had more detail. Izuku stood up so fast he forgot what was happening and paid attention to everything he could see. Not only with his eyes, though, but with everything. Everything had more detail than anything he had ever experienced. He looked at the railing. He could see the shiny paint that was just applied there a few days ago. He could see even the tiniest creases along the metal. He looked to the ocean. He ran right up to the rail and looked far beyond the river that led to the ocean. He saw all the ripples and waves at the tiniest detail. He saw several fish right below the surface of the water. He noticed every scale and their glistening color. It was appealing. Izuku turned back to the park forest. He turned in all directions. Even from far away, Izuku could see a little ladybug on a leaf in the distance. He could see its spots, and by God, it was absolutely amazing. He could see all the lines in even the tiniest leaf. Izuku was so glad at the moment that he did not even register all the trees and flowers growing in size and greener than ever. This was the absolute best day of his eternal life so far. He then noticed something odd. None of his senses were turned off. They were all still on. He could still see everything in the park. He could picture the rest of the area. It was like he had eyes everywhere. His senses were on. He could now see more than he ever could before, or even imagine to. This was just one part of his powers. If so, then he wanted to learn everything, because if each of them were just half as good as his senses, then he would be the happiest kitsune in the world. He turned to face his cousins. They weren't on the bench. Instead, they were right behind him. They both put a hand on his shoulder. Izuku turned around so fast with a smile so bright in his face. He turned around to both of them and embraced them both so tightly. They both stared at him shocked for a moment before embracing him back. These two helped him with something that he's been trying for a few weeks in just a few minutes. They were absolutely amazing. I love them. After a little bit, he let them go. He still had that overwhelming smile. Now that he has all his senses, he could learn how to use his powers. Thank you guys so much. I don't know what I would have done without you guys. I have never felt like this before in my life. Izuku ranted, with a whole lot of pep in his step. He was practically bouncing on his feet. They both bent down to meet eye level with him. This is just the beginning. You will only get stronger from here. Cassandra stated, Are you kidding me? This can only get better. Oh my god. Izuku mentally screamed with absolute glee. Now, thanks to you guys, I can start my training to using my powers. Tell me what you want, and I will repay you too for what you have done, just name it. Izuku offered. The two eagle bearers looked at him confused. They looked at each other and then back at him. They just realized something very crucial. Izuku, you don't have to pay us for anything. We are family. We are there for each other no matter what. Alexios stated. Izuku now had a frown, but he wanted to pay them back. They did something so nice for him that no one else has ever done before in his life, except his mother. BU, but I want to pay you guys back. This is the most someone other than my mom has ever done for me. I can't just let that go unrewarded. He tried to argue with them. They both held up a hand. Izuku, what is your mother to you? Cassandra asked calmly. Huh? Was she serious? He was puzzled by the question, but he was going to reply anyway. She's the most important thing to me, he stated with no hesitation. Shoulders straight and head held up high. Not the answer we were looking for, but we'll take it. Alexios noted. He put his hand on Izuku's shoulder once again. Izuku, she is your mother, and she is the most important thing to you. You two have a relationship that we all share, and that is we are all the most important thing in the world. Okay, Izuku kind of understood. All his life, it was just himself and his mom. There was no one else like that, so having new people here saying that they would do anything for them was kind of hard to believe. He didn't know what to feel. Izuku. Cassandra spoke up. Izuku lifted his head to meet her eyes. We wanted to help you because we want you to grow. We want you to be happy, and right now is the most happy we have ever seen or heard about you. Cassandra stated. Inko sends monthly texts and emails to all members of the family to give updates on Izuku. They say he's sad about being quirkless, and how he is constantly being bullied at school. It also might briefly state how Inko wants to kill some of these assholes that hurt her little fox. So you don't owe us a thing. We are happy to help you with anything. You just have to ask. Cassandra finished happily. She smiled at him with warm affection. Izuku felt tears welling up in his eyes. He has never felt this kind of love from anyone else. He wanted more. Tears finally burst from his eyes. The two siblings gasped and grew confused. But not for long as Izuku embraced them in a hug once again. They were shocked again for a second, but realized the tears from Izuku were tears of happiness. They hugged him back. After a few minutes of non-stop crying, Izuku finally spoke up. If there is anything you need from me, just say it, please. The same goes for me to help you too with anything, okay? He said while sobbing. The two kitsunes could do nothing but agree. They were family after all. General Hospital Inko was just finishing up another set of rounds right before her lunch break. She was about to head to the cafeteria with her blue pack of lunch when a certain someone called out to her. Mom, Izuku called out. She turned to his voice. He was across the lobby waving at her. Behind him were Cassandra and Alexios. They had fond smiles on their face and a plastic bag in the woman's hand. Inko grew a smile. It was nice to see her son in the middle of the day. Wait, the middle of the day. Why wasn't he in school? He didn't need it. However, To keep up their identities as regular humans, they needed to act like regular humans. The mother and son hugged each other. "Why aren't you in school, sweetie?" They ended the hug. Izuku scratched his head in embarrassment and looked off to the side. "Cassandra and Alexios pulled me out to help me with something," Izuku explained. He wanted to tell his mother that he got the rest of his senses, but he could with so many people around. Inko raised an eyebrow in suspicion. She glanced at the siblings in question. Later, Cassandra mouthed. Inko nodded her head. "All right, as long as her little fox isn't hurt, she's fine with it." "Okay, well, I better be given an explanation later." She pointed a finger at her son. He nodded frantically out of joy. "Anyway, what are you all doing here? I don't get off for another few hours," she asked, even though she probably already guessed. Cassandra held up the plastic bag. Izuku spoke next. "We wanted to have lunch with you. I've also got so much to tell you." He smiled even wider. Inko chuckled at how much her son's mood had changed in the last few weeks. General Hospital cafeteria, the four members were sitting in a booth, while Inko was eating her packed lunch along with a few cookies that her son bought her. The other three were enjoying plastic bowls of udon. They had sat down, and Izuku had retailed all of what happened at the park. How he got his senses, and how he felt he could see more than ever before, and how he never thought anyone could feel like this before. He did think one thing was weird, though. Ever since the park, he hasn't been able to turn off his senses. They weren't bothering him at all. It was simply weird to now sense more. His mother was happy to explain why. It's different from quirks, because quirks are just fancy accessories on humans. They aren't naturally a part of them. Us, Kitsunes, naturally have strong senses. We can't turn them off because they are a part of us. We were born with them integrated into our beings. She laid a hand on her chest to emphasize the point. Izuku was really intrigued by this. So this isn't an ability. This is just who we naturally are. Inko nodded her head and drank out of her bottle of water. It's like learning how to talk. You can just naturally do it, but still need help getting into it. Izuku nodded his head in understanding, thinking about how he was when his senses were off. He could say it was like being blind, but now that they were turned on and that they stayed on, it was like he opened his eyes and he saw everything around him. Not just what was in front of him, but all around him. It's like he has eyes all over his head, and the eyes could absorb more information and tell more from. Like right now, the woman on the other side of the building was eating an apple while drinking black tea. She also smelled like hand-wash soap. She was also listening to a podcast in her earphones. Present Mix podcast, to be more specific. He was talking about how he was going to play a song that his best friend really liked. At the top of the building, he heard an announcement says Code Blue. Wonder what a Code Blue was. It was like he had a super awareness quirk. No, this wasn't a quirk. This was him. This was his true self. Inko was so proud of her little fox. He was growing up so fast. Well, he was already grown, but compared to having his true nature being suppressed, he was still a little newborn. And now that he has all his senses, she could start teaching him the basics of his abilities. She doesn't know what she will teach him first. Should she teach him telekinesis first, compulsion? Yeah, she didn't know what to teach him first. She was just so happy that he was finally getting into his paws. Maybe she can show him how to transform into his fox form. While they were eating, a man appeared in the cafeteria in normal clothes, looking confused. "Hello," he shouted out. Izuku's head shot up towards the man. None of the other kitsunes looked up. What was also interesting was no one in the entire cafeteria took notice to him. It was like he was invisible. Izuku watched the man in confusion and curiosity. Was this man okay? Why wasn't anyone paying attention to him? He walked around calling certain people and shouting at them. No one reacted. It was kind of creepy, but that wasn't the thing that shocked Izuku. The man walked up to a group sitting down and conversing with each other. "Hey, can you hear me?" They didn't respond. "Come on, why can't you hear me?" He tried to touch a person's shoulder, trying to get their attention. But when his hand came in contact with his shoulder, it went straight through. Izuku lightly gasped and dropped his chopsticks. What the hell? The man pulled his hand out from the person. He looked at his hand in terror. The man looked like he was about to hyperventilate. The person he tried to touch didn't even move or took notice. He turned around and ran in panic to another part of the cafeteria. Izuku's staring caught the attention of Alexios. He turned his head in the direction of the little kid's sight. He saw the man. "Inko, is that one of your patients?" He pointed towards the man who was currently phasing through a table. Inko and Cassandra looked to where he was. "Oh yeah, Mr. Kamen. He must have just died. He was in the top floor." Inko sighed. "Guess I'm going to have to call his wife and tell her the bad news." "What does she mean dead? He was right there." Or he was right there. He had just passed through a wall screaming for someone to help him. "Mom, I don't understand. You said he died, but he was exactly right there. How could he be dead if he was just walking around screaming for help?" Izuku questioned his mother. Both of the siblings looked at him in disbelief. They then stared at Inko. "You didn't tell him about ghosts." Cassandra spoke first. Inko held her hands up in defense. "Hey, baby steps, he's growing. More like inches." Alexios grumbled. "Ghosts. They were real." Inko turned to her son, ready to explain. "So when a person dies, their soul moves on to the afterlife. Which afterlife depends on the deceased's beliefs. Atheists are set on random since they don't belong to anybody. Which part of the afterlife depends if you were a good or bad person. Good goes to the good place. Bad goes to ah." She silently screamed and made a face of terror while barely flailing her hands. "Hell," Inko continued. "The souls who aren't ready to move on stay in a place called the Veil. It is a spirit plane right where ours is. Ghosts roam there freely. They can't interact with each the living. That's why that man you just saw yelled out wildly and no one reacted, because no one heard him, and he could pass through everything." Cassandra spoke up next. "We as Kitsune can see them because we are spirits ourselves, but we are not dead. We can even cross between this world and the Veil. We even have the abilities of ghosts while in the Veil." Every time Izuku heard something new about a Kitsune, he was shocked beyond belief. But in the back of his mind, he always knew ghosts were real. That old lady in the school the other day, she must have been a ghost. That's why no one paid her any attention. She was dead. Can we go to the afterlives as well, or are we just limited to the Veil? He wanted to ask a lot of questions right now. To be honest, he was surprised he wasn't freaking out now of the revelation that ghosts were real. The adult Kitsunes grew sad and shook their heads. Nothing is allowed in any of the afterlives that are alive. Only the dead are welcome there. Alexios explained. "Wait, that didn't make sense. But you two went to Elysium and Hades, and you two are still alive." Izuku commented on the paradox. "We were given special permission to enter. If it weren't for that, we wouldn't be anywhere near it." Cassandra explained TH phenomenon. Inko, though, of how, if she were allowed in the afterlife, the first thing she would do was go find her love. He's most definitely waiting for her. But death would have to catch her first, and she doesn't have any intention of being caught. Inko tried to lighten the mood by telling him about Kitsune's souls. "This doesn't work with Kitsune's souls, though. We can go down no matter what we have done. Once we die, our soul gets cut up into two pieces, the good and the bad. The good goes to the afterlives, and the bad gets destroyed. So it serves as justice itself, since our bad sides are being cast aside and our good sides gets to live on in peace." Inko told her son of the glorious process. Izuku looked at his mother with a shocked expression. He honestly did not know how to feel about his soul being cut in half upon his death. In the dumpster in the back of the hospital, a bag full of glass bottles all shattered at once. And the ghosts in the Veil remain in the Veil until they are ready to move on. Alexios knocked Izuku out of his shock. Or unless those things come to get them. They won't tell Izuku yet about those terrifying abominations. Izuku looked towards the wall of where the ghost departed from. "Shouldn't we go help him?" Izuku meekly asked. "No need, sweetie. They're all like this in the beginning. He'll find his way." Inko waved off her son's concerns for the newly deceased. "Bu-dash," he tried to argue before being cut off. "It is better to let him find his own way instead of us meddling. Fear not. He will be all right. He will stay if he wants to stay, or he can go if he is ready." Cassandra assured the little Kitsune. He wanted to help him at least. He wanted to go up to him since he could apparently see him and explain all of this. But if they said he will be fine, then he will have to believe them. Izuku relented and returned to eating, as did the entire table. After a few minutes of calm silence between the table, a woman in a doctor's coat and heels walked up to their table, looing all smug. "Inko," the woman spoke. They all looked up. CRP. It was Dr. Lingered. She had her arms crossed. I was informed that you examined a patient when I specifically said Mirai to do it. Yes, I examined the patient, and I resumed my duties like normal. Inko explained with no fear in her voice. She was brave, even in the face of a beach. It doesn't matter. You disobeyed a direct order, and so did that other one. I have half a mind to report you both right now. Dr. Lingered threatened Inko. I wasn't doing anything wrong. Mirai was off duty and had no obligation to examine the patient. I did so without any problems or complications that would disrupt my duty. Inko defended herself. She calmly stated, "All right then, we'll see how this goes. But disobey me again, and I'll have you and that whiny lovesick beach out of here before you know what hit you." She threatened again before walking off. The entire table, except Inko, was completely shocked of what just occurred. Their eyes held fury in them. The three followed the doctor with their eyes. Cassandra glared at her and was halfway of getting up when Inko called her back. "Sit down," Inko ordered. That wasn't right. She had no right to talk to you like that. Cassandra argued. She wanted to kill that woman. It is not a big deal. I'll deal with her later. Inko brushed it off. You do not have to put up with that CRP. If she knew who you were, she would be bowing to even be in the same vicinity. Alexio stated, "It is nothing I don't deal with on a regular basis. Plus, I can fight my own battles. Don't worry, you two, it happens." Inko told them. She went back to eating. The two siblings wanted to help her. They wanted to kill the woman for even thinking to threaten their cousin. But if Inko told them not to, that she would handle it herself, then they would let her. They were very reluctant to let it go, but they obeyed their cousin's wishes. However, the two siblings were not the ones that need to be concerned about. No one noticed how Izuku kept silent. Izuku was watching the doctor with a deadpan expression, but underneath was a blazing monster of fury and vengeance. He tightened his fist, and his pupils dilated. His eyes slightly glowed a faint green. Izuku was watching the sad excuse of a woman interacting with another doctor. They were both smiling at each other and laughing. All the sounds around him slowly started to go on deaf ears, and a slight ringing was replaced. Izuku wanted to protect his mother from this beach. He wanted to make her suffer for threatening his wonderful mother. He wanted her to die. This newfound fury was slowly bubbling. He wanted BLD, as the two doctors were. Laughing, Dr. Lingered suddenly stopped and looked puzzled. She covered her mouth and started to cough. It started out slow. The doctor next to her looked a little puzzled about the cough. It then sped up and turned to hacking. She bent over and she grabbed her stomach. It was speeding up and becoming louder. It started to get more violent. Then out of nowhere, she coughed up BLD. There she started to convulse. The doctor next to her grabbed her and laid her down. She started to cough up more BLD as it was seeping out of her mouth. He laid her on her side. "We need a crash cart," he yelled out to everyone in the cafeteria. Everyone sprang into action. Her face started to pale. Inko turned and saw the dying woman. She knew from just seeing the sight before her that that was not normal and turned toward her cousins. But just like her, they were puzzled as well. They both shrugged and glanced towards the other Kitsune, and their eyes grew wide. Oh God, please no. Inko already knew what she was about to see. To her horror, it was as she predicted. Izuku's eyes were glowing, and his stare was fury-filled. He kept his face down. Dr. Lingered was now leaking BLD from her eyes, as multiple people came to her aid. They turned her to her side, so she wouldn't choke on her own BLD. Inko knew Izuku was doing this. She just didn't know he could do this yet. She waved her hand in front of her son, trying to activate her powers in order to stop him. Nothing happened. She was still dying. She now had a blue face and was gasping for breath. She couldn't move a muscle. She looked scared. This was turning bad. Inko waved her hand again in order to hold his powers back. Again, the same result. Nothing. Inko looked shocked. What the hell was going on? Alexio saw Inko was having trouble, so he leaned forward in front of Izuku and waved his hand, trying to use his powers. Same with Inko. He had his eyes wide. Cassandra tried this time. The same thing happened. Nothing. Izuku was still murdering the woman. He didn't move an inch. He was purely focused on the dying sight of the pathetic human. Their powers weren't working on him. They couldn't hold him back. They were now alarms blaring around the cafeteria. Everyone in the hospital was now aware of what was going on. Inko had to do something. She had to act like a human now, since she still had an identity to protect. She couldn't stop her son. She turned to the two siblings. Get him to stop, she ordered without any room for defiance. She then ran to the fallen doctor, who was now shaking beyond belief and in a pool of her own BLD. The sight was truly horrific. The two siblings moved to where Izuku was sitting and tried to get his attention. They shook him. He didn't move. They tried to do everything. Nothing was working. Inko was trying to help the doctor. She looked back over to her child to see he was still in that trance. Izuku, please stop. They didn't have much time left since the doctor's eyes had now rolled back. Cassandra had moved in front of Izuku's face, who was looking straight into her eyes, as if he was still looking at the doctor. Cassandra stared into his eyes and activated her eyes. Her eyes glowed a ruby red. They both stared into each other for a few moments, ruby red meeting emerald green. Cassandra was trying to connect with his mind. There was a barrier so massive. Cassandra tried to break through it. They only had a few seconds left. She was about to die. Finally, Cassandra got to him. Stop! Izuku gasped for air as if waking from a nightmare. His eyes ceased colors. He was breathing heavily. The fallen doctor had gasped for air and coughed up another bit of BLD. She was going to be fine. Inko was right beside her, looking more worried than she has ever been in her life. Inko looked back toward her family. Izuku was staring at the sight in horror. He was scared. What had he done? After the incident in the hospital, Inko asked the eagle bearers to take Izuku home. Inko had to make sure there were no lingering effects on the doctor. No one had suspected Inko's family. She was really thankful for that. Izuku had not said a single thing since. Once Inko had gotten home, she was greeted by the two siblings, and they reported that Izuku has been asleep for a while and that he was too traumatized over what he almost did. He apparently went straight to bed once they got home. Right now, Inko was sitting at the dining table with her hands together at the base of her mouth. She was deep in thought. Alexios was pacing around the kitchen. Cassandra was leaning against the counter. How does he even know how to do that? He shouldn't know how to do that. He's too young to even know how to do that. Alexios was rambling as he was pacing. I don't even think he even knew what he was doing. When I snapped him out of it, he seemed like he was genuinely shocked that he had done that. Cassandra reasoned while also pacing. They were all freaking out. The reason being was not because Izuku almost killed someone. Well, they were worried about that as well, but they did not think that at the top priority at the moment. He's not even able to control his powers yet. He barely gained his 5 senses a few hours ago. Inflicting harm upon a human requires total concentration with psychic control. Alexios stated. Again, what if he didn't even know if he was doing it? He just felt something and went with it. It isn't impossible for a Kitsune to execute an ability without any knowledge of how to do it. Cassandra stated. This was all becoming so crazy. Inko was still not saying a word. She was still deep in thought. Cassandra looked up at her brother. What if he let his trickster out? Alexios shook his head. I doubt it. Tricksters are sadistic when in that state. He was just trying to kill her and nothing else. He dismissed the theory. Cassandra grunted. She began to rub the side of her temple. She looked up at the Kitsune sitting at the table, wondering what was going on in her head. Inko, what are you thinking? He's your son. You should have some idea what was going on with him. Cassandra spoke up. Alexios stopped pacing. He was now staring at Inko for an answer. A few seconds passed before she took her hands away from her mouth. He resisted us, she whispered. That had been on the family's minds as well. The fact that none of them could stop Izuku with their power. Some of the most powerful Kitsunes on the planet could not stop the little kit from killing a woman. It was only thanks to Cassandra connecting with him in his mind that he snapped out of his crazed state. He's only a few weeks loose, and he already can resist us. Inko stated louder. His powers are growing at a concerning rate. Alexios noted. Concern evident on his face. The only other Kitsune that has their powers grow like this is Amara. Cassandra stated, remembering the young Kitsune power growth. But she resisted us when she was just 3. It still would have taken time for him to do that at all, or even show signs of that. Alexios argued. They were trying to find a reason why. They were getting no closer to the answer. There's one thing they both have in common. Inko replied to the conversation. She really hoped she would not have to tell Izuku about this so soon. But she apparently had to. But maybe not. She could just tell him just a portion of it. The bloodline, Cassandra whispered. Inko nodded. The bloodline. The one thing connecting Inko to her. He still would have taken time. We still don't know much about his capabilities since he's been caged most his life. Alexios was referring to the medallion that was restricting him. Inko looked up to Cassandra and stared at her. What did you see when you connected with his mind? Inko questioned. Connecting with his mind was the only way for him to stop. If she hadn't done that, Dr. Lingard would have been dead. Cassandra thought back to a few hours ago. What she had witnessed was not something she expected from a child, especially a child like Izuku who was so cheery. Inko was waiting for an answer. Cassandra got a cup of tea off the stove they had been preparing. Oleander was good. However, they were having mistletoe. Poisons had a genuinely nice taste. She had sat down in front of Inko with a grim expression. As I first tried to connect with his mind, there was a massive barrier. I've never felt something like that before in someone so young. As I pushed past the barrier, I felt as if I were being burned. It was like the wall was reinforced with spikes. After a bit more pushing, I got in. Cassandra stopped and took a sip of her tea. She averted her gaze from her cousin. This was disconcerting. She did not want to reveal more. But Inko was his mother. She had a right to know. She finally looked back up to Inko with serious eyes. Inko, before today, has Izuku ever acted out before? Alexios raised an eyebrow at this. What was she getting at? Inko shook her head. He's always been calm. He's never even raised a fist towards anyone before in his life. Inko hated how he would never fight back against the bullies at school. But that was her little fox. Always kind, even to the ones that never deserved it. When he was killing her horrible supervisor, she was beyond shocked. Cassandra continued. It was only for a moment, but before I told him to stop, I could have sworn something was let loose. I felt the anger coming off it like it was sun rays. But not just anger. Anger, fear, sadness, hatred. She listed off the things that she sworn she felt when she was connected with his mind. At first I thought it was the trickster influencing him. But thinking on it now, she shook her head in disbelief. Whatever it was, it wanted BLD. Cassandra finished with a dire expression. This left the mother speechless with wide eyes. This is not what she was expecting. What was going on with her kid? She could think he was possessed by a demon or a ghost, but she quickly wrote that off since kitsunes cannot be possessed. Unlike humans, when there was something wrong with a kitsune, there could only be a few things, not a multitude of things. It could be his emotions. Human emotions are candlelights compared to a kitsune's raging fire. Alexios suggested. That was actually probably it. Maybe Izuku wasn't able to handle the emotional growth of a kitsune. That was definitely because he grew up with a human body. Kitsunes from BRTH are used to dealing with strong emotions, and they are considered normal for them. But to a human, it wasn't simple at all. In fact, if a human had the emotional capacity of a kitsune, they would surlily break down, crying, and want to burn down the nearest building. If so, then any frustration Izuku had when he was human may have mutated and grew. Cassandra had taken another sip of her tea. If that were true, then this was going to be awfully bad. Izuku was having trouble dealing with his strong emotions, and he didn't know how to handle them. So, the reason he was killing that woman was because he was angry. Alexios questioned unsurely. This was too complicated. No, but it probably fueled it. Maybe he's also converting his emotions into energy. Cassandra stated, true to their word, emotions can fuel a kitsune's power, but it was hard to do it, especially for a young one. The statement made Inko look up in realization. What if he isn't? What if he isn't taking in the emotional energy? What if he is purging it? Inko suggested the simplest thing. It was one of the simplest things in Kitsune book. Both of the siblings stared in shock. They contemplated it for a second, then looked up in realization. How could they be so stupid? They were about to speak, but stopped when they all heard a noise coming from Izuku's room. They all looked toward the hallway in concern. They all listened for a second. They heard breathing coming from his room. Izuku was awake. His heartbeat was a bit fast. Inko sighed heavily. Izuku, you can come out. We know you're awake. Inko called out. They heard the sound of a door opening and closing. In came Izuku looking depressed. He stared at the floor in shame and kept his arms wrapped around himself. Alexios moved towards him first. He came beside him and put his arm on his opposite shoulder in a comforting touch to lead him to the table. "Why don't we have some tea?" he suggested. He sat Izuku beside Cassandra. They were all staring at him in concern. Alexios went and grabbed everyone a cup and the kettle. He poured the tea. He sat down by Inko, none of them making a move. They all just stared at Izuku, waiting for him to do something. Izuku, for his part, hadn't moved at all and was staring at his cup of mistletoe tea. A few more minutes passed of silence, of which the suspense was killing them all. "I get it. I's a dash." She didn't get to finish as she was cut off. "I am so sorry. I swear I didn't mean to do that. I don't know what happened to me. Please believe me, I didn't mean dash." Izuku shot his head up and screamed at them. Cassandra put a hand over his mouth to silence him. They all had startled expressions. They did not expect for Izuku to burst out like that. "Izuku, sweetie, you don't have to apologize. We believe you." Inko calmed her son, who was still panicking. Cassandra removed her hand. Izuku had wide eyes. "You do?" Inko nodded. "Izuku, you are my son, and I have never known you to want to hurt anyone, much less kill anyone. That would soon change." She knew that it would. Izuku frowned. He looked down to his cup. "Then what was that? Because I swear it was like something just clicked and then that." "Well, we think we have an idea." Cassandra spoke up. "Why don't we hear what happened from your perspective first?" Izuku looked down, thinking back to a few hours ago about what happened. After a minute, he looked back up, ready to tell. "Well, when that mean doctor was talking to you, Mom, I just felt my usual anger flow up again. But then I felt something else come over me. I know this may sound weird, but what I felt like I needed to protect you, Mom, from that horrible woman. I just focused on her after that. It was like everything else faded." Izuku concluded what he felt at the time. "Then all of a sudden, I heard your voice." He looked at Cassandra. Then everything stopped like a pressure was gone. That made perfect sense to all the mature kitsunes. He used his emotions. Alexios turned to Inko. "So you were right. It was obvious. He wasn't using his telekinesis. He was using his emotions. So what's going on? What did I do?" Izuku asked the kitsunes, who knew what was going on and did not tell him. They all turned to him with smiles of finally having some relief. "Izuku, you didn't do anything wrong. I mean, you almost committed murder, but we'll talk about that another time." Inko brushed off the attempted murder. "Seems like something we should talk about now." Izuku meekly stated. "So what you did is actually very simple." They ignored his statement. Izuku slumped forward. "Great, this is going to go so well. Let me ask you this. When you break stuff with your emotions, what do you feel?" Inko asked her son. She was going to explain it the best she could. Izuku already knew what it felt like. "Whenever I feel angry, I feel like this pressure is building up inside me. And once it fills up, it gets released. And once that happens, something breaks." Cassandra nodded in approval of this. "That's actually a pretty accurate description of this." The others nodded as well. "Well, when you did what you did a while ago, you directed it. Other times, you just let it spill out without anything to point it at." Inko revealed what Izuku did. "I directed it. Wait, like aiming it like a gun." He asked to get a better insight. Alexios nodded his head. "You said it yourself. You were only focusing on her. Therefore, your powers were aimed at her when you were angry. You've always been very protective of me, but I didn't know that you'd kill for me." Inko joked at the worst possible time. "Mom, this is serious. I could have literally killed someone," he exclaimed while standing up. "And they would not have suspected a thing." Inko joked again. Izuku relented and laid his head forward on the table. "That's not the point," he grumbled. "This was a very cute sight." They all chuckled at him. Now that Izuku thinks about it, he never really focused on a specific thing when he broke something. The first time he was just angry and wanted to yell. And the other times he just felt angry or shocked or scared. All random things broke. But when he focuses on something, he can break that specific thing. He would have to be very careful when this would happen again. Once the adults were all done laughing, they remembered that they needed to tell him about his growing powers. "Izuku." Cassandra tapped his shoulder to make him look up. He looked up with tired eyes. This was all too stressful. So, sweetie, we need to tell you what had happened when you were in that state. Inko got cut off. Wait, hang on one moment. Alexios stopped Inko. He lifted his tea and downed the poison. He then put the cup in front of Izuku. Let's see if he can control it. Oh God, what are they going to tell me? Now I want you to focus on the cup while we tell you this. Alexios instructed. He wanted him to destroy the cup. He was unsure about this, but he did as he was told. He stared heavily at the cup while listening. What are they going to tell me? Inko stood up straight. Izuku, do you remember when I told you your powers were a bit unstable from the beginning, and I said I had to use my powers to stop them from going out of control? She treaded carefully about this. Izuku nodded while still staring at the cup. What was she getting at? And you know how I'm very powerful and how I have all 9 of my tails, she continued. He nodded once again. How could he forget? How could you forget that your mother is one of the most powerful beings on the planet? Well, when we were at the hospital and you were killing that woman, she stopped as this would definitely make him more worried. Yeah. Izuku looked up at his mother with great hesitance. But Alexios, pointing at the cup, made him return his stare. You resisted our powers. We couldn't stop you. She finally told him, in which he shot his head up in surprise. Wait, what? He exclaimed, taking his concentration of the teacup, and behind Inko and Alexios, the glass case containing plates crashed as if a brick was thrown. They all sweat dropped to the now destroyed cupboard. Perhaps we should practice in an easier setting than this one, and with something a bit easier, Cassandra suggested while taking another sip of her tea. Now that you say it, I believe that would be best. Alexios spoke up. Back to the topic at hand. What do you mean I can now resist you? He asked while panicking at the same time. Well, you resisted all of us. Alexios spoke up once again, now having to pour himself another cup of poisoned tea. The lamppost outside of the apartment building exploded in a shower of sparks. What the hell do you mean? Izuku exclaimed. Inko grimaced at this. God, parenting was hard. She has participated in 42 wars, been shot multiple times with many things, participated in mob-related activities, get battle wounds with an assortment of weapons, and literally fought with abominations of hell. Of all that, parenting was harder, much harder. How the hell did her mother survive her? You see, Izuku, once a kitsune is born, the first few years they learn how to handle some of their powers. And in that time, other kitsunes can use their powers on them. Like how I lifted you with my telekinesis when you were trying to go to school. Once a kitsune gets to a certain age, they gain a resistance from us. I could contain you because you're still only a few weeks old. Inko explained to him. This made Izuku confused more than he already was. Wait, I'm 13. So should that make sense if I can resist? You guys, I mean, if it's just a few years of growing up. In human years, you are 13. But you just started your kitsune life a few weeks ago, and that is when you started growing in your real form. So, no, you aren't 13 anymore. You're merely a few weeks old. Cassandra revealed to him. Back outside, another street lamp exploded. They all sweat dropped once again. I think we need to move soon. Inko suggested. Izuku nodded his head. So, if I'm only a few weeks old for a kitsune, then how am I already able to resist you? That was the question they were all wondering themselves. Inko sighed heavily. Your powers are growing. Faster than any kitsune out there. None of us know why. There's only one other kitsune who had their powers grow this rapidly, and whose resistance started early as well. Inko was telling him about the predicament he was in. And if your powers are this strong now, that they can do this within a few weeks, and you still don't know how to control them, there will be a day where you will turn everybody to ash. Inko revealed the horrible truth. That's why kitsunes can be held back within their first few years of life, so they can control their powers first without any danger. But Izuku doesn't know how to control them, and he can also resist now. They were in a bad situation. He needed to be trained as soon as possible. Izuku was starting to breath heavily now. So what does this mean? What's going to happen? Izuku didn't want to kill anyone just because he can't contain his powers. Inko stared at her son with such intensity that it would make All Might cower. It means we need to teach you how to use your powers as soon as possible. A few hours later, after his mom said they would start training him as soon as possible, Izuku had over 1 million questions. But his mom said that they would explain it to him tomorrow, since they were all exhausted. Izuku wanted to protest, but he kept telling himself that he needed to trust them. They ordered takeout after that. Dinner was held in silence. After that, the siblings left, and everyone went to bed. That night, when Izuku was sleeping, something strange happened. Well, stranger. Izuku was sleeping peacefully in his bed. He hasn't been dreaming lately. Not that he's complaining, it was actually really peaceful. Tonight, however, was a different story, as his body was snuggled up in the covers and bed sheets. His mind was elsewhere. The place where he was in was anything but peaceful. Izuku opened his eyes, and he was in an unfamiliar territory. The colors were very dark, almost like a cloudy night. Around him were fog and smoke. He looked around, and to his surprise, he was in a stone ravine that had a path. Izuku looked around. How did I get here? Hello, he called out. His voice was echoed throughout the rocky terrain. No one answered. This was freaky, Izuku thought. He didn't know how to explain it, but this place held the aura of pain, sorrow, and fear. He looked up at the sky, and all he saw was just a cloudy blackness. Where the hell was he? The path that was in front of him, the ground was obscured by the fog. Is anyone there? Izuku called out once again. And once again, no answer. He didn't know what to do. He groaned in frustration. Might as well do something right. He thought. He would later regret going deeper. He started to walk down the path. A few minutes after, he noticed some things. On the stone walls, there were some sort of carvings. It looked like some sort of language. Not a language Izuku's ever heard of. There was also claw marks, but that wasn't the thing that was most disturbing. Along the claw marks, there was BLD, lots of it. Some looked as if they were old, and some looked as if they were new with some still dripping down the stones. As he continued down the path, he saw that the claw marks were getting more frequent. What the hell was this place? He was starting to get a little scared. He felt as if every horror movie fan in the world was screaming at him not to follow down the path and just find another way. But he didn't listen. Izuku continued down the path. Above Izuku, just on the cliff, a shadow of something on all fours with glowing veldy red eyes and obscured by darkness, there was something growling. Its eyes followed Izuku as he walked. The path was getting steep now. It was descending. To what? The claw marks and BLD were everywhere now. It looked like an absolute massacre from one of those Friday the 13th movies. This was full-on horrifying now. The writing was everywhere as well, almost like a crazy person had wrote. It was scribbled in big and small symbols. All of a sudden, there was a horrifying scream. Ahhhhhhhhhhh. It was of pure terror, like someone was about to be murdered. Izuku jumped a bit from this. He always wanted to help people. The second someone is in danger, Izuku automatically thinks of a way to help. But for some reason, Izuku felt as if there was no helping whoever screamed. He didn't know why, but that's what he felt, as if he literally could not do anything to help. The question was now more important than anything else. What is this place? Suddenly another scream echoed between the stone walls. Someone help me. They called for help. He wanted to help. Izuku wanted to help so bad, but his legs would not pick up the pace. He would just do a steady walk. As he made more of his way down, his foot made a swishing sound. He stepped in some liquid. He could not see what the liquid was since the fog still obscured the ground. He thought that it wasn't water. He also realized that he was barefoot. Was he always barefoot and he just didn't notice? Whatever, that wasn't the main thing of the moment. What was he stepping in? Izuku reached down to feel what was down there. He stopped once he hit the liquid. He sunk his entire hand in. It was a bit more dense than water. He lifted his hand up, and to his horror, it was now the color red. BLD. He was standing in BLD. His hand was now caked in it. His hand looked like his mother's right after she tore that man's heart out. He was looking at his hand in horror and shock. He shuddered, and his hand was shaking now. Why is there a pool of BLD where he was? He wanted to turn back. He wanted to go home and be in his comforting bed. He wanted to be in his mom's arms because that was how scared he was at the moment. He couldn't. He felt as if he needs to go deeper too if he wanted to get anywhere. With all the courage he could muster, he walked forth into the pool of BLD. Izuku's hair on the back of his neck stood up and felt the need to look up at the cliffs. He lifted his head, and all around him on the cliffs were 7 pairs of glowing red eyes. They were surrounding him. He froze. He didn't know what to do. He could hear them growling. Were they animals? He wanted to run. He really did, because looking at the glowing red eyes that had the aura of terror in them would scare anyone off. He could not run, though, because he felt as if they would attack if he ran. He continued down. The BLD was now to his knees. Thank goodness he was wearing shorts. Izuku kept his eyes up to keep track of the eyes. They were following him. They were going along the ravine walls. Yeah, this must be straight out of a horror movie. This had to be a dream, right? He hasn't dreamt in a while, so it is hard to tell. But everything here felt so real. The path, the cold, the BLD. It all felt real. The BLD was letting up. As he walked further, he felt it becoming shallower. Though with one thing gone came another thing. The screams from earlier were now more frequent. They were from multiple people. They were all calling for help. He even heard them crying and wailing as for someone to rescue them. Can the heroes even help you? Izuku finally stopped when he saw something terrifying. Something that would be burned in his memory for centuries. Something that, if a human saw, would rip out their own eyes. In front of him was a ginormous double door. It looked like it was over 100 feet tall. There were torches on both sides illuminating it. There were so many of the symbols on it. And in the middle was a painting of a human with his arms spread wide. He was on fire, and surrounding the person were mountains of bones. What the hell was that? There was something over the gate. Writing he can understand. He read it out loud, and was now very confused as to what that meant. He walked closer to the gate, now right in front of it. He could now tell that the door was made out of metal. There were openings in the door. They were like iron gate holes one would have at their house. The holes were going right through the door. They were about the size of Izuku's hand. He bent down to look through. As he was about to gaze through, a hand shot out. Izuku jumped back in shock. The hand was stopped as it could not go any further due to the size. "Help me, please," a woman's voice cried out. Her hand was covered in BLD. Izuku rushed to get up, having fallen from surprise. As he was about to grasp the woman's outstretched hand, it was pulled back in with a scream in terror. Izuku recoiled again as the sheer horror of what just happened. Did someone pull her back? He crouched again to look through the hole, but was blocked again by someone's face looking, though. It was a man this time. Izuku could only see his mouth as he screamed. "Have mercy, please," he hoarsely screamed. The same thing from last time. He was swept away by someone unknown. Izuku looked through the gate again, staring to see if anything else would happen. All he was more dark stones and smoke. He couldn't see anything. He got closer, looking through the hole. After a few seconds, a huge glowing red eye with a slitted pupil appeared. Izuku woke up. He was breathing heavily. He sat up in his bed as the sunlight enlightened his room. It was morning. He was back in his room. He was safe. It was all a dream. None of it was real. He sighed. Izuku was starting to calm down. When he started to dream again, did it really have to start up with a nightmare? He mentally cursed. Oh, well, better get up for the day. He can smell his mother in the kitchen humming to herself. His senses were also one thing to get used to, since he could literally sense everything in the apartment building. He can hear a conversation happening on the bottom floor. He could smell food being made on the other side of the building. He could feel the vibrations of a washing machine on the second floor. One thing caught his attention. There on the third floor was some sort of shuffling, and he could hear a window opening. He heard the conversation. Something about she's right outside the apartment. Hurry. What the hell was that all about? It finally clicked. The person was cheating. Come on. He finally went into the kitchen to greet his mother. She was just finishing up cooking. "Morning, sweetie." She went up to him as he sat down. She kissed his forehead. "How'd you sleep?" she asked while bringing him a plate. "Weird, actually. I had a weird nightmare." Might as well tell her about it, right? Inko stopped in her tracks and looked back at him confused. "That's weird." Izuku was confused. "I haven't even told you about it yet." The son reminded the mother. She brought a plate to him, filled with breakfast. "No, I mean, it's weird you would say that since Kitsunes can't dream." She revealed to him. Izuku stopped in his movement to pick up a fork. He looked up his mother in confusion. "What do you mean we can't dream?" he asked with a steady voice. "Haven't you noticed the last few weeks you have been having dreamless sleep, and it's been peaceful?" she questioned him. He nodded. "I thought that was just me being too tired." He thought it was that. Inko shook her head. "No, Kitsunes do not dream. We just fall into a peaceful sleep. We can dream walk into others' dreams, but we can't dream ourselves." She explained more to him as she poured herself a bit of orange juice. He was about to say something that is wrong with that, but she beat him to it. And don't tell me it isn't peaceful. It's nice to just fall into relaxation when you're tucked out. She poured him a glass of orange juice. He was about to protest, but then thought that, yeah, it was nice and peaceful. It was nice just to shut down and forget about the world for a bit. Then what did I see when I was asleep? He asked, now curious. Inko thought on this. Well, it could be a few things, to be honest. Based on how much your powers are growing and your lack of control, it could be a vast amount of things. You could have been dream walking on someone else. You could have been seeing the future. Or you could have been astral projecting. She started to eat. Wait, predict the future. He can actually do that. He was about to ask when his mother held up her hand to stop the oncoming questions. I'll explain more later. But for right now, why don't you tell me what you saw? He started from the beginning. He informed her about the stone ravine, the dark sky, the horrifying aura, the scratches, the pool of BLD, the red eyes. And finally, he came upon the gate. He told Inko all about how there was a painting and how it was so big. Inko listened to all of this with full attention. He finished with the people that called for help. Inko was thinking, did he really see it? She looked back up at him. This gate, did it have an inscription above it? She questioned her son. He nodded. Yeah, it said something weird though. He was puzzled by it. Abandon all hope, ye who enter. He revealed. Inko's eyes grew wide in realization. He did see it. She calmed down after a bit. All kitsunes know about it, but never would any kitsune be let inside. Oh, so you did Astral Project then. It's nothing to be worried about. She waved it off. Izuka was now wondering why the sudden change. Wait, I astral projected where? She waved her hand again without a worry. Oh, it's nothing to worry about, honey, she stated. She then spoke a sentence that would once again suggest that they needed to move soon. You just saw the gates of hell. Thank you for joining us on this journey through What If Deku Had Kitsune Quirk. We hope you found it as captivating as we did. A big thank you to FoxLover25 for creating such an engaging story. Don't forget to visit their profile on archiveofourown.org for more fantastic works. The link is in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Zenin Fanfics for more intriguing explorations into fanfiction and fantasy. Your support helps us create more content like this, and we love hearing your thoughts and suggestions in the comment section. See you soon in the next video.